20 seconds. What up, everyone?
Hey, salutations, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Prspctvs podcast. We are your hosts. My name is Littty, bro. Flacko. This is Holdern, Stefan Roy. Holdern, say hi.
Hi, Holdern.
That's right. You already know how we get down. Today we have our guest, New York City vet. Wait, is it New York City or is it Jersey? Because we were talking about
it's kind of both. We'll get into it, but it's kind
word.
of both.
I just saw verbs from New York City everywhere.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Tri-state vet, EOW veteran, tri-state NDMC. What was the word that you used, Holdern?
Visionary, pushing the culture forward.
Pushing the culture forward. I like Holdern's wording sometimes. I'm like, that's some good white speak. Do that again, Holdern. Our guest, Verbs.
You. What up? Peace. EOW. Prspctvs.
Free-O-Dub Dojo host.
Facts.
Oh, you see, I did not know that you now host. I'm still. I was telling Danny that I was still unaware of the changes that got made to Free-O-Dub show. I've been perpetually caught up since the new year and whatnot. But that's dope. So you're the new host of Free-O-Dub show. We will get into that.
So me and None both host Free-O-Dub, the dojo. Last week on Thursday, I was dolo because None couldn't make it. But yeah, the plan is it's me and None. And then we alternate with the Free-O-Dub show, which is hosted by Zoo and CF.
Word.
Yeah.
Word. Copy. We're gonna get into all that. We will specifically get into all that. First, we're gonna do the show, right? Like walkthroughs that we usually do. I always do our origin story first, right? I'm pretty sure that you're a little bit familiar with it, but I'll do a quick abbreviated version, right? Like I was doing the Littty Bros run, right? Volume 1, and the engineer for that project, Merker Miyagi, shouts to Merker Studios, Merker Miyagi in Montreal, was the engineer for the project because I told Jess to take it easy and calmate and get away from the mixing and shit, you know what I mean? We're heading into Puerto Rican Day Parade month, so I'm gonna get very Latin, more and more Latin as the weeks and days keep on pumping by. And so I told him to take it easy and relajate, and I let Merker take care of the engineering duties. And Merker might as well be a New Yorker, like I always say, because he's like one of those engineers that's like, I don't promote nobody that I work with, because if I promote one of you motherfuckers, then I got to promote all y'all. And I'm not promoting some of this trash. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just trying to make $1 here and earn a living, feed my children. I don't really want to be promoting this shit that you motherfuckers is making in here always. But he did promote our shit, and with like wild, loving remarks. You know what I mean? Like, yo, I never partied in New York, but like I never did coke in New York City. But if I ever did coke in New York City, I'd want to do it with the Littty Bros, which like made Holdern take notice, and Holdern perked up. I recently watched back that interview or his first review of the album, and I was like, oh yes, oh my God, look at this oldness now at this point, right? Because we're like a year and a half into this shit. And so the point is, Holdern did the review, and then I was like, yo, let's do an interview. He was like, I was already planning on doing the interview. You're throwing yourself on me. Relax here, guy. And then we did the interview, and I was like, yo, bro, I felt like I went to therapy. And I was like, yo, I got to put the homies onto this shit. You know what I'm saying?
That's
and fucking 50, what are we at
56.
now?
56. This is 56.
56. 56. I like even numbers. I like even numbers better than I like odd numbers. But 55 was the nice number last time. Because it's a nice round number. But I like even numbers. I'm an even number type of guy. I'm an even Stevens kind of guy. You know what I mean, Verbs? Like, I'm the type that I'm like, one for you, one for me. one for you, one for me, two for you, two for me.
Fact.
You know what I mean? Like this, we got to be in the even world out here. So, but the point is, we started doing this show, and here we are, 52 episodes fucking later. So
56.
Holdern likes to 50. Oh shit.
56.
sorry to be paying attention and like, you know.
Thank you for paying attention. Clearly, I'm not.
You're even
Clearly,
Steven, and I'm the consistent guy, like the attention to detail dude.
Clearly, I'm not the attention to fucking what I'm saying out my own mouth, guys. Right. So Holdern likes to get the show started with how he does, right? Okay. But I like to skip in line and ask you to tell the people your name, what you're known as out in this motherfucking streets, right? When you're outside, what's another name that people call you? Where are you from? And then where are your parents from?
Okay. All right. So my government name is Omar Rivera. My stage name is Verbs. Pretty much I've been rocking with Verbs since the 90s. I started off as Verbals. You'll hear some of the old EO Dub vets call me Verbals because that was like the original AKA way back when. So I grew up in Washington Heights, New York, until I was 21. And then when I was 21, I moved to Jersey when my pops passed. And basically from that's where I met like my whole crew, Hypnotic Experience. That's where we started. Like I was kind of like baby spitting when I was living in the Heights. But not writing, just basically like freestyling, whatever. People would do a beatbox. That's what we did back then. Beatboxes. People would do a beatbox. People would do a beatbox, and I would do my little freestyles and whatnot. And then when I moved to Jersey, first of all, when you from New York and you move to Jersey, nobody from New York comes to visit you. So
nobody. I'm not going to visit you.
Nah, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, at that age, at 21, none of your 21-year-old friends are going to be like, I'm going to get on the bus. I'm going to get on the bus and go 21.
I mean, yeah.
Actually, my bad.
I go visit some of my Jersey friends that were not too difficult, especially if you live off the Bergen line.
Right.
I'm like,
not at 21. But not at 21. Right now, we grown folk. We do our Actually, that's cap though, because one of my homies came out to visit me, took the bus and the whole shit to visit me. We burned some L's.
Shout out that one homie.
Yeah, my boy Steve, man. Big love to him.
Steve but we was mature for his age.
You know, we like trees, and you know, back then we was bumping the Wu-Tang double CD and the Biggie double CD. Anyways, so I moved to Jersey when I was 21, and pretty much I was just on some hip hop shit because it was like
we're gonna go through all of the whole life story stuff. I promise we're gonna go earlier than that. You don't even know.
Before you cut him though, he still has to finish telling us. Right, he told us where he's from. Now he has to tell us where his parents are from.
Oh, all right,
that's facts.
Yeah. Okay. So both of my parents were born in Dominican Republic. But my dad was actually half Puerto Rican, half Dominican, but he was pretty much raised full Dominican. Wow. So by blood, I am 75% Dominican, 25% Puerto Rican. And it's funny
100% Dominican.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, my Spanish is straight Dominican.
That's like a running joke with me. With like any time that people are like, "Yo, I'm 75% something," I'm like, "So then you're 100%." Like my friend was telling me about his wife is like 25% French. She's 75% Puerto Rican, but she's like from the Bronx, a wild Puerto Rican girl.
Yeah, hell yeah.
She's not French, bro. She's not French. I don't care how much 25% she has. I promise you, she goes to France right now. She's not blending in. She's not blending in with France. She's blending in with the Bronx, though. You know why? Because she's Puerto Rican. And you are Dominican, my friend.
So just
shouts to the Puerto Rican part.
Yeah, for sure. You know, my parents, my mom came to this country though when she was like 16, so she finished high school out here. So it's like I'm first generation from my pop side and like 1.5 generation from my mom's side because my mom speaks full English. You know what I mean? She basically grew up here and over there. So similarly, I grew up in New York and in New Jersey. I think I covered the questions you asked, correct?
Yes, correct.
Awesome.
Let's
So
let
now we're
Holdern
gonna
get
run
to
it
his
all
little.
the way back. So I got my opening thing. It's a bit of a story when it lands. You can just kind of go wherever with it. And it all starts out with my girlfriend. She'd be washing the dishes one time. She got her phone out playing that Black Eyed Peas song. I got a feeling. Ooh. She's vibing. She's dancing. She's doing her thing. And I look at her and I start thinking, when the fuck did this song become chores music, right? Because like if you think about this song, you run it back like 10 years or so, it's like middle of the night, party vibes, everybody's dancing, it's celebrations, it's good times. You run it up till today, the song doesn't change at all because it's a song, but we changed so much that now it's the chores music, it's the stuff you put on when you're exercising, you're trying to go back to the really fun stuff when you're kind of doing the really, really boring stuff. It's got me thinking about the little 20-year-olds running around with the drills and whatnot, and how they have no idea that one day they're going to be dancing to the dishes to that shit. They don't know that when I heard Pop Smoke, it jumped straight to dishes music for me. It just jumped the line like that. I just don't even know about it. I bring all that up because this whole like being a music person, right? Like it's a journey, and all of the context and everything changes over time and whatnot. And when you watch a lot of these like interviews and things like that, you'll notice everybody kind of starts like when they start rapping, or maybe when they turn 21 and they hip hopping and bumping double disc and whatnot. But that seems to be like people start this stuff so late into life, right? Because it makes sense. We have our identities, it's related content matter, but there's a whole lot of related content matter that's just because you make music and you listen to music, and music been around you since time. Like when you came out as a little baby once upon a time, there's a good chance that in the hospital there was some songs playing and you was absorbing it, even if nobody remembers them songs. Like I know that when I'm like young, like 5 years old, we was up in the apartment in Montreal and my dad's got these gray boxes all over, like the amp and the preamp and the radio and the tape deck with the wires going around to the little ghetto home surround sound system that was built up around, and he'd be busting his little Led Zeppelin tapes and things of that nature in the daytime. And at nighttime, it would be like techno music straight from the clubs of Montreal and whatnot. My mom's was more like love songs and discos and musicals and that sort of vibe. And there's the radios and the Disney movies and all this shit swirling around, creating this whole soundscape of music that was being absorbed by me before I had any control over it. And it totally influences me to this day. So I was hoping, Mr. Verbs, you could bring us back to the youngest Verbs you can remember being and tell us a little bit about what it sounded like to be you, keeping in mind that not everybody watching this is going to be coming from New York City. So the more context and flavor you give, the better it is. So like, tell us a bit about what it sounded like to be you.
Yeah, for sure. So I was born in 1976. So I'm like 3 years younger than hip hop. You know what I'm saying? And like my parents was just definitely music people. Like my pops had records, my mom's had records, and it was always, definitely some merengue, salsa, all of that stuff. But, my mom was in high school in the 60s. So there was a lot of, doo-wop and R&B and bebop or whatever, like that kind of music into the 70s. And so there was always music around, and it's kind of like, yeah, my dad had his records, but it wasn't like he would just play them all the time, but there was always music playing. My parents would throw parties at the crib. Whenever we was driving, it'd be like either an oldie station or a Spanish station. And then through my older cousins and through my brother is really when I got the plug to like hip hop. And like, I remember like probably some of the oldest hip hop songs I remember is like Jam On It. I remember obviously like all of the old Run DMC shit, but I remember like The Message and all of that shit. And so it was kind of like you get those little bits from like older family stuff like that, people that are getting put on. And then really, really hip hop hit when I was like already going to school age. It was like everywhere by that point. You go to summer camp for us in the city, they take you to Van Cortlandt Park. You go to that pool in Van Cortlandt Park, and there's people with the big ass boom boxes just bumping shit. So you just soaking it up. You just soaking it up.
But hold on, when you were little though, before hip hop, because that's something that I'm always very, very interested in, right? Is like, what was the real like it thing? Like, what was your mom's favorite record? What was your pop's favorite record?
Yeah.
What was the shit that they were really bumping?
I would say, there's a couple of records that I remember them like singing along. We'd be in the car and they'd be singing along. There's like this, like, I think it's like a 60s song. It's like knock 3 times, dun, 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 and meet me in the hallway, like shit like that. So I saw in the back.
Danny, look at Danny. Danny's reacting. Danny know the song that you're talking
right.
about.
So they would be that.
What would you call that? That would be like just old R&B, no? Like that thing? Like
it's either like, yeah, it could be either. No, actually, no. That was actually some 50s shit. I think that knocked 3 times.
So I mean, it might
50s or
be
60s,
somewhat doo-wop-ish, maybe.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, like the big hits from like the 60s, from like the 70s, like the Jacksons and stuff like that. Like everybody knew those records. So they clearly, like, when those songs came on, we was all like in it, you know what I mean? But when they would throw on oldies stuff, it could also be just oldies like merengue and oldies salsa, and Johnny Ventura and all of that.
Word.
Old, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm curious because I'm like, oh, like if like because you didn't mention any of the Latin stuff, right? So like I'm like, oh shit, so your parents were like very progressive Dominicans then.
Well, so
you know what I mean?
Here's the thing. So my dad was 12 years older than my mom's. So it's two different, almost kind of like two different worlds, where it's like my dad was more like,
sure.
Yeah. My dad was born in 36 and my mom was born in 48. So it's like my mom went to high school in New York in like 64 to 68. My pops ain't even come to the US till like 19, I don't know, maybe 68.
Verbs, I'm sorry, but I'm like, yo, that's so very Dominican of your dad. You know what I mean? Like with the wild younger woman and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like
yo, but like, I mean,
shouts to stereotypes. No, you know what I'm saying? Like let me tell you something. I take pride in some of our stereotypes. Like I don't give a fuck, because there's shit that we used to be ashamed of. But it's like, what the fuck are we being ashamed of shit? Like, it's better than being known for like.
It's better than being fake.
Hateful.
It's better than having shit to hide.
A whole group of people and shit like that, and like all sorts of other like fucked up shit. It's like, big deal. So we came from a group of men that tended to like women much younger than them.
No, I mean, what is
the problem here?
Not only that, but it's kind of like, if you think about it, like, you know, like I know in my family, like my grandfather had like 6 kids with my grandmother, but then he had a couple other ones with another woman. Yeah. So those other kids are like my aunts. Yeah.
I mean, all even that in that old school, right? Black and brown in America shit. You know what I mean?
I think the times were different, and I think also just kind of like these kind of communities, because like obviously my grandfather was doing his thing in DR back then. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like things were different. It's like, well, you got this one family over here and this one family over there, but you know, you kind of still like, they're all still your family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for me, like all my aunts and uncles, I treat them all the same. Like, I don't really care about who calls themselves halves or who calls themselves. Nah, fuck that.
Word, yeah, like, You're just on to uncle. Like, I'm not.
Yeah.
I know what time it is. My father was raised by like after a certain age, my father lost my grandmother was murdered by like one of the first serial killers in Puerto Rico, and my grandfather was like a drunk that was like not fit to like raise 10 kids, and like so like they split it half, and the 5 oldest took the 5 youngest, and so my father was taken in by like his older sister and raised with her kids like they were siblings. His brothers,
right.
Like siblings. So like I call them my uncle. Technically speaking, they're my cousins. But I'm not fucking sitting here and mincing. You're the fucking uncle, bro. You're my dad's age. You were raised with my dad. You my uncle, bro. We not cousins.
Right.
Cousins
exactly.
Is your kids and me. That's cousins. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They're technically your first cousins, but it's like
yeah, exactly.
So so back then, you know, things is all different. I think we got onto this point because we was talking about the stereotypes and then my dad being Matt older than my mom's. I think that similar thing was going on with my grandfather, my mom's dad, and my mom's mom. I think there was a pretty, probably like a smaller age difference, not 12 years, but it was still probably like 7 to 10 years difference. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's one of those cultural things that just kind of comes with the territory. And it was different times back then. You know what I mean? Shit was like,
well, I think we ended up on it because of the music. Right? So like you were gonna emphasize, I think, the difference in the musical taste because of the age, right? I think that's where you were going with it.
Yeah. So my mom would have been the one bringing all the new shit in. Being like, oh, this is good. This is, that contemporary stuff, where my dad was like, all right, like it's not like he would say, nah, that's whack. But it's just kind of like my mom was the one bringing in this new shit. This is what we was liking when we were in Brandeis High School in Manhattan. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
younger people always have that life to them, like the I'm up on what is dropping musically. I'm up on where to go. Because you're young, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, yo,
it's so exciting. It's everything exciting. Is so exciting.
So exciting.
Yo, that's what it is, man. That's what
it is. It is. And I guess that is why, right? Like in our culture, like the men tend to favor younger women because it's so exciting.
I mean, it's also like we might be more like vibrant than other people's at their age kind of thing, where it's like, I know for a fact that my dad was young-minded for his age. So it's kind of like with my mom's older brothers and sisters, it's kind of like he was still like, he's still older than all of them, but he's still like vibing with all of them too. You know what I mean? And I know I came out that way too. Like, I don't feel 46 at all. Dead ass.
Fact.
I don't feel 46
definitely.
at all.
And women, and Danny in the comments said
I
that
would
women
not have
mature
known
faster
you were
than
46.
men, which is definitely true as well. You know what I mean? Like, for sure. Women
Like,
definitely do mature faster than men. So it is one of those things where, like,
you definitely got a young person energy too. Like, when I found out how old you was, it was like, wow. Like, it was one of those I was not expecting at moments.
Knock on wood, man.
Good genes.
Hashtag good genes. Yeah.
But let's go back to it. Circle the block, right, and go back to it. So break it down, right? Like, what are we talking about, like, musically and genre wise, with your parents at the time when you were little? Like, dad, you were saying also that they did play some Spanish music. So like, who played what? Like, so like, because like in my house, my mom used to play the salsa and the merengue and the new shit that was on like La Mega, right? And then my dad used to play like bolero and ballads and like fucking mariachi and Mexican fucking crying about like beating your wife and her leaving you, which is like, she should leave you, my guy. Like, that fucking, you know what I mean? Shit like that. So like, what was the breakdown in your house? Like, what were they playing?
So pretty much it would be like, if it was a party or something, or we having people over, my mom's pretty much running the music. You know, she'll use the records that my father has, but my mom's pretty much running the music. If we're in the car, it might be 50-50. It might be like, all right, let's listen to the oldies, or then boom, let's see what's on the merengues on the Spanish station. Obviously merengue, we would get it popping. Like, that's that high energy shit. My mom is big, like, love to dance merengue and all of that shit. And, you know, my father would do it, but it wasn't like he had that like gusto to go dance. Whereas like my mom was like the party starter, like, yo, boom. And so if it came down to a choice, then my mom would probably choose some merengue shit, some Juan Luis Guerra, you know, or even some of the older groups, like I mentioned Johnny Ventura, but there was like a lot of those old ones. You know, sometimes when certain people will come out with like a big record, and it wasn't necessarily, it was more like you were saying, like kind of like love songs and boleros and ballads and stuff. You know, if it was hot, it's kind of like how we are with music, or maybe how we were back in the days when we used to like be prime into like buying CDs or whatever. At least for our era, I think you and me, Dutch, are at least a little closer
Yeah,
in
yeah.
age. I know than
Mhm.
Holdern, but
I still buy
Mhm.
CDs.
we're still, but right. Oh, so that's even iller on its own tier. But basically, like when some new shit comes out, like all of y'all heard the Kendrick by now, right? Even if
Yeah.
y'all didn't like run out the first day and you sitting there watching all these YouTube analysis on it, you up on it. You know, more or
Mhm.
less, you got an opinion on it. So at the same time, it's the same thing. It's like, we're gonna go out or back then you didn't really even purchase that much music. It's like the radio provided a lot of the music, and then there'd be certain things that you have to go purchase that it's like, like that, when we were growing up, Thriller. I remember going to the store with my mom to get the Thriller cassette, and it was like that shit never got out the tape deck, the Thriller album.
Yeah.
Like we was all on that. And I mean, figure what Thriller came out in what, 84 was it?
Uh, I don't remember. My parents had it, and it was big, but like that was still I was 4, so
Oh
you know what
yeah.
I mean. Like it's crazy though, because by the time I was still young, like 8 or
Came out in
9, right?
'82.
Like it still was
82.
cracking. Yeah,
Yeah,
so you
yeah,
see
yeah,
even
yeah, yeah.
more. I was 2 years old,
Yeah,
but it
so
was
I
still
was
cracking in the late 80s. You know what I'm
hell yeah.
saying? And then the
Hell
early
yeah.
90s, it was still cracking until he
Hell
did,
yeah.
what was it that he did next? It was History,
Black or
was it
White.
that was next?
Oh yeah. History, right? That was the one with
Yeah.
Black or White and everything.
Yeah, with Black or White and
Mm-hmm.
Scream with Janet and
And
all the other
Remember the
records, right?
Time. Yeah.
Remember the Time? Yeah, yeah. So like that, like Thriller took him all the way through, like maintained him. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
not like everywhere I would go, like even as a like early preteen and teenager, 13, 14, whenever I would go to like people's homes, that record was
Mm-hmm.
always there. Like
Yeah,
it was
man.
one of those mainstay records that everybody had.
Yeah,
Everybody I
nah.
knew,
Like
every household that I went to had the Thriller record. Always.
I think Thriller, for a while, it was the number 1 most sellingest record, and then I think it got taken out by the Eagles' greatest hits,
Nah,
and then that kind of but it's
it
still
still
number 1.
is.
But
It's
yeah,
still
but
number one.
it
It's
probably sold like 2 million copies in like the year 1997 or some shit. Like, you know what I mean? It's that
yeah,
type
nah,
of.
it still sells. It still
It's
sells
yeah. I
crazy.
mean, and you go to a wedding and you still gonna hear one of them records from
Still.
from that from that
Michael
album.
Michael is one of those like artists that like he really has transcended eras like uh
Mm-hmm.
completely. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
And
Absolutely.
organically.
Organically.
It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's not like payola to keep his spins going years and years later. It's
Yeah.
like, he and also he was like the blueprint really for he was the pop star blueprint, after that point. Even though obviously he really like invoked a lot of James Brown shit, but
Yeah, absolutely. He was born out of James Brown, period.
yeah, I
James
mean,
Brown.
he got famous as a kid singing these songs that these major label artists are putting out, and he's killing it just as much as them. Like,
Yeah.
which is really
But
crazy.
once he went solo, he was absolutely like a child of James
Mm-hmm.
Brown. And James Brown, before him and Prince, was like the king, the crown holder, the one. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that before James Brown there was really like a the one. You know what I'm saying? Like
I mean, it's
there
tough,
were
man. There
many
was a lot of
greats, but
there
like
was so James Brown was the one with the energy, but then when you talk about like a Marvin Gaye or
yeah,
whatever,
no,
like
Marvin Gaye and all of them were like
with the
amazing,
soul,
right? Like I think that Marvin Gaye's albums were like one of those things where it was like his albums transcended. But I think that like the torch that James Brown had was like not like the hardest working man, the Godfather of Soul. You know what I'm saying? Like these are like titles before the King of Pop. You know,
yeah,
like
this is true.
Marvin Gaye didn't have like a title. You know what I'm saying? Like that was like bestowed upon him. He was just one of the greats, kind of like Sam Cooke, kind of like Isaac Hayes. Teddy Pendergrass. Like these
Barry
are all
White.
greats to us. Barry White, right? But like they didn't have like the Al Green, the moniker. You know what I mean? Of like the Godfather, of soul, the hardest working man in show business. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but so that was the other thing, is that James Brown prided himself on being an entertainer, being able to perform, being able to sing, being able to dance.
Like I don't think that he like vocally was necessarily. There were all sorts of ways that he was getting beaten out by all those guys, right? Like he was not hitting like certain notes that some of these guys were able to hit. He was not a writer the way that some of these guys were writers, right? But it's that overall package. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'd rather have a guy that is like 7.5s, 8s across the board than to have the guy who's like a 10 in things that you care about, but and then like, oh, he ends up being like a 2 in this other really important thing. You know what I mean? Because he's a 10 at this other thing. That's so much focus on that, you know? And James Brown, and I think that's what all the greatest, like the guys who get that, like the best, it's not that they're the best at one specific thing, it's that they're great at everything. You know what I mean? And they're not the best at any particular thing, but they are great at everything.
Right,
and
right.
that's
like
what James Brown had.
So being a great recording artist and a great live performer, and then just a great personality. Because you watch some James Brown interviews, and he's the man. Like you see him on these talk shows, and he just kills it. He just kills it, and so that's
Willie World in the comments mentioned Ray Charles, also Stevie Wonder. There's so many that like can contest for titles, and that like if we're but like I'm just going by the titles already given, right? Because it's one of those one of those easy, that's like a layup, right? Like if the title is there, it's because the people have already named you this thing. And if the people gave you this title, that means that you earned your title. You know what I'm saying? And if you got that title, it's like, that's it. The title belongs with the belt, goes where you can't fight the people. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
look,
like
Michael Jordan never called himself the greatest. Michael Jordan never called himself the greatest.
Have to. Everybody else did it.
It wasn't Mike on
Tyson
him to
didn't
say
call himself the greatest. You know what I'm saying? He would give props to Ali, and he would say, I'm gonna fucking chew your fucking, I'm gonna eat your fucking babies, but he would not say that he's the best. You know what I'm saying? But other people said that because, I think that Ali was the one that he definitely did say that he's the greatest. But like that's also exercising the other thing, right? Of like, announce who you are and like proclaim who you want to be, and that is who you can end up being sometimes. But you also have to be a great.
He was also a social force too, so it was kind of also like, like I'm bragging so motherfuckers don't sleep. You know what I'm saying? Like I gotta tell you,
bragging. He was also bragging to break out of a mold. At the time, it was like if you're a black man and you're a champion, like chill out and just be happy that like they're letting you be a champion. You know what I mean?
Case in point, Jack Johnson. Case in point, Jack Johnson. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And Ali came through like, fuck that shit. You suck my dick. I'm the fucking greatest. I'm the. I mean, he didn't never say suck my dick, right? But like, he definitely was like out here with that, like SMD energy. You know what I'm saying? Like fuck that. Which is like SMD it was warranted for the time. Like for him, it was important for young black men to see him being that way, so that they can have the realization that they can be also that same way themselves.
Facts.
We have deviated all the way.
Super deviated.
This is like, all.
I don't know anything about any of all of that.
Let's go back to your childhood, right?
So I got okay. So
about that.
No, hold on. I want to know if when you were young, you were like musically inclined and whatnot. Like, were you dancing? Were you trying to like sing along with the records, or was you like not involved with the music?
So it's a funny story because it's like I used to like when I was a kid, I was one of these little kids. You ever hear these little kids that got like a deep voice? So I was one of those kids. So my mom always tells this story of like I would always like listen to my dad screaming and cursing like a loud Dominican, and I would be reproducing all of that shit. Anyhow, so initially, the funny thing is that one of my childhood friends' moms always would like kind of make fun of me because in my kindergarten graduation, I was the dude that was chosen to lead the song. So it's kind of funny because it's like almost a premonition. But anyways, growing up, I tried piano. It kind of didn't really take. At one point they give you a recorder in like grammar school. And it was cool. It's a
many
novel thing.
people have talked about the recorder on this show.
Recorder is pretty awesome.
No. It is, but it's like it was never something that I was dedicated to. Like, yo, I'm a master this shit. So there was things like that. I mean, hey, karate was another one. It's like, oh, everybody take their first little karate class. Shit was wild popular in the 70s.
You were a New York.
80s.
You were a New York kid. You had to be, like,
exactly.
like those are very New York kid things.
Right.
It's like we all like were into kung fu, karate, right? Ninjas, kung fu flicks. We were all into Transformers, G.I. Joe, Voltron, Skellies. We all played basketball with a fucking. We all played basketball.
I'm following this. I've done a whole lot of these.
Okay.
I've even had Skellies broken down.
Oh, okay. Pardon self. But so yeah,
we got a lot of people on this show educated.
That's what's up. But like for me, music was more so like not something that I did until I say probably in like when I was in like 6th grade, then my brother got like his first like DJ set. And my brother was starting a DJ. He had a summer job. He stacked that paper. He got himself his first little turntables and his mixer and shit. And so then I was open. It was like a DJ set in my crib. And most of the time it's him getting his skills up. But every now and then, whether he was out at work or some shit, I'm gonna just sneak in there and try to do. So that shit was just like, wow, that's like, it's like you're performing magic, basically. Like for a 6th, 7th, 8th grader kid, this is like DJ technology is still fairly new. Not like, we had the top of the line shit, but that was really like that first, like, wow, this like just feels different. It definitely didn't feel like piano lessons or the recorder or anything like that. This felt like, yo, this is the dopest shit ever. Like, and if I could do one little blend and get a little bit of props from like my brother, my older cousins, and when they watching me, and it's like, yo, like it was just so exciting, like we were saying. But I mean, DJing was his thing, and I was just like really heavily like in love with just the concept, the art, and then the stuff that was coming out. So like, from Run DMC, from all of those old school groups, it's kind of like I was already like the kid memorizing the lyrics a lot, like a lot of the Run DMC shits and just a lot of certain things from that period, just certain songs just stuck to me. I remember LL Cool J, I'm Bad, like that was one of my joints, like, you know what I mean? But yeah, I didn't really get involved as far as like me rapping or, I guess beatboxing was always something that kind of came up because we would always, you got your summer camp and shit, and we'd just be banging on the tables and shit. So that was like the initial baby, like the seed that was planted that ended up becoming like producer and, in my mind that started like branching out to like, hey, maybe I could create some shit. So
you were just a kid that ended up getting exposed to a whole DJ setup on random, and then just had access to older people pumping you full of all the latest records, and then you were just memorizing the shit.
Yeah. I think so it's funny. I'll tell a funny story. It's like I was in like 6th grade when my brother was in like 7th grade or 8th grade. He had gotten left back, so he was still older. So either way, like he was still more advanced. And then, for me, I'm like getting plugged in, but I didn't really like have money to go get records and shit and this and that. So I remember around like 7th grade, my brother's in 8th grade, I buy my first record from like allowance money or whatever. And I bought Children's Story by Slick Rick. Love that shit. But of course, my brother being the DJ, the record pretty much ended up being his. Like, he's doing this, he's doing a tape, he's doing a party or whatever. Yo, I need that record though. Like, you know what I'm saying? So my record, which is like, I didn't even have my own turntable to play it on, basically became his record. But that was like my connection. Like, ooh. But so yeah, to answer your question, just outside influences, you know, just being out and about, hearing the radio, and then my brother becoming a DJ. And then also some of my friends from like grammar school also became DJs as well, saved up their little chips and got their own DJ sets. So then by then it was like we were up on, you know, wanting the new stuff, like either taping stuff off the radio, or, you know, when people have money to buy the records, we just play and listen to the records. You know what I mean? And that in and of itself just started to infuse me with like, this is the one, this is the culture, this is the shit that I really like that.
But it's also like, you're still in New York City, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which part of New York City are you in?
Where all the Dominicans are. Thank you.
Word.
I don't know what that means. Okay, like that you can't maybe you guys are saying that, and I'm like, I don't really know where that is. Maybe I do.
So it's like one of the northernmost parts of Manhattan.
Okay.
Where like the George Washington Bridge crosses from Jersey into New York. It's like that first stop that you land in New York. When you cross that bridge, you're in Washington Heights. And it basically stretches from,
so it's the top of Manhattan.
Ends. So Washington Heights and
close to it, yeah.
Inwood is the tip top.
Inwood is the tip top. Yeah.
And then there's Washington Heights.
The Heights is under it. Dykeman, okay. Shouts to Dykeman.
Yeah.
I'm
Dykeman's
definitely
like the border.
I'm definitely gonna be lit in Dykeman or that weekend of the Puerto Rican Day Parade, because regardless that it's the Puerto Rican Day Parade, the Dominicans are gonna be the ones that are gonna be getting the littest in the whole city.
It's basically the South Beach. It's just basically like South Beach.
In New York City. Facts.
Yeah.
I used to love going to La Marina. I just finished seeing a video that was like a Facebook memory of like 5 years ago of like being out taking the wife out to La Marina and like dudes just in the streets with all the fucking three-wheel with the lights all over them shits and shit, with the music blasting and shit, and it was just wild lit. Like it was a nice lit summer night and shit.
Yeah.
And I was just like, good memory. As soon as I saw that video, I was like, that was a good night. That was Dykeman. Shouts to the Heights. Shouts to Dykeman. Shouts to all the Dominicans in New York City.
Okay, fair enough. So you're out there, and as you start like moving into like school age and getting a little bit older, do you like? You said you start with producing, like you go in that direction more, or do you start rapping?
It was more so freestyling. It was more so freestyling, and it's funny because it was like, by the time I get to high school, it's like total love for hip hop, and my first year of high school was 1989, so that was like fall of 89 when I started high school, and shit was still rough. New York was still rough. I lived in Washington Heights, and I went to a school in the North Bronx, a Catholic school. It made it even worse. So I would have to take 4 trains to get to school. And that 4 train ride was like treacherous. It was like, you really, really, really got to be careful because you would get caught out there. But anyway, that was back in the days where people would
you were taking the train in the 80s.
Yeah, taking the train. But
that was still a little bit of leftover from the lawless New York City of the 70s and shit.
Facts.
That's the New York City from the Warriors movie that you would see like people actually assaulting cops because there were no cameras and we outnumbered the cops. So and it was just a different city back then.
Yeah.
Before Giuliani became mayor.
So back in the days, like that was still an era where people would be on the train, in the train, on the platform with their boombox, smoking trees, like whatever. Like I remember hearing like Warm It Up Kane on like the 161st platform while I'm waiting to transfer to the next train, and motherfuckers is just playing Warm It Up Kane, Warm It Up Kane, and we just there like, wow, this is the shit. But so by the time I got into high school, it was like I probably wrote like 1 or 2 little baby verses in high school, but I would never spit them to anybody. It was like I had them memorized. I didn't even know how to count bars or whatever, but I had a couple little verses. I probably spit it like once to my brother and once to like a couple friends, but I never really like considered myself a rapper or made it my intention to be like, look, I'm a really practice this and sharpen it, and people gonna know my shit. But ironically, when I was in high school, there was a rapper who went to my high school. And he it's funny because I wasn't cool with him in high school, but he was.
What rapper is this?
Shi Ali.
Oh, word. You went to school with Shi Ali?
Yeah.
Word.
He was actually a year behind me. And I knew people that knew him, and he seemed like a regular dude. He wasn't really on no like bullshit, like yo, like you know what I'm saying? Like
yeah. I mean, it's never like that, really.
Yeah. He was like a regular dude. Obviously, like shit that happened to him after high school was really like it's fucked up when we all heard. It's like, damn. But I think he's out now. I think he's chilling. I've actually seen interviews with him. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But so that was kind of like, wow, like, it was like, yo, that's dope that people are serious about that shit.
So from where you're from.
Right. And so there's that. There's the fact that we're in a fucking Catholic school in the Bronx, and here's a dude who's an actual rapper who has songs that you see the video on the shit. And then also that, he's a regular dude. He ain't on no bullshit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so that was dope. But it was still didn't clue into me like, yo, this is what you should really get passionate about and you really want to do. Right.
So hold up, what were you passionate about back then?
What was I passionate about in high school? So like as a fan of hip hop and shit and all of that. And, like, I guess when I was at that age, it was kind of like, when you're in high school, you don't know what the fuck you want to do. And so I think basically what I wanted to do with my life in my mind was become like a computer engineer or something to design video games. But many years later, only years after messing up at engineering school multiple times, did I realize that really wasn't my dream. That was actually the dream of some of my older cousins who actually did become engineers. But for me, it's like I looked up to them, and it kind of like it just grafted on me like, oh, okay, I like video games. And, this seems like
why wouldn't I want to make video games?
Right. But the thing is that
it wasn't really at the core of you what you really wanted.
It wasn't strong enough to make me fight through engineering school and want to become an engineer and also I didn't know what I was going into. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, I'll do that. Like, like whatever. I went to a decent high shock. School. I went to a decent high school. I had a couple good colleges. There was one college that was like really like feeling me, and they had this HEOP program. I don't know if you ever heard of HEOP, but it's kind of like it's a program where they take minority students and they basically hook them up with where they go to schools. There's a version for the state schools, and then there's a version for private schools, and you basically go to the school for the summer before you start, and they basically give you all your books and they give you a ton of financial aid because they want, more diversity coming through those halls and actually graduating. And, you smart kids, like, you know what I'm saying? So there was a school that I ended up going to, which was up in Albany or by Albany in Troy, New York, called Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. And I was miserable. Like, I didn't know what I was cut out to. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And, shit was crazy. It was like my first time really experiencing racism for the first time. And
you left the city and you got culture shock. You thought that the world was New York City. Ha! Yeah. Joke's on you, motherfucker. Hell no, it's
not. And just like also I was just learning so much socially. Like when you out of your parents' home, that you just like
when
you
you're
have
becoming
no
a man
constraints. When you all the decisions that happen 24 hours a day are what you decide. that's like a lot to absorb, and there was nothing there to ground me. I didn't know, nobody from my old schools or from my hood went to that school. It was like just me and whoever else I met out there. You know what I'm saying? So, and there was some kids from the city too. Like I'm not gonna front like I was just by myself. Like, but at the same time, it's not like there was not enough drive. There's not enough drive in me that's gonna say, all right, you have a great opportunity. You're going to work this through to the end. And, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I have a nice idea of what I want to do, but I don't know what it's going to take. And I don't know, I find out later.
You like many young people, right? Probably would have benefited from not going to college immediately after high school. And like discovering yourself, like that's not something that's like influenced in like American culture, really, because
and it's also that my parents never went to college. So, well, my dad went to City College for a couple months, but he didn't like finish City College. So the kids whose parents have gone to college, and especially if their parents have gone away to college, they know how to prepare their kids a little bit better. You know what I'm saying? Because they're going to tell you, all right, you're going to feel homesick. You're going to have friends doing this and that. You're going to have a lot of choices in front of you and things like that. Things about, or simple shit like when you need help, ask for it. That's one of the biggest shits. Like I went through multiple schools without ever going into office hours and talking to a teacher. Multiple schools. And it was kind of like, all right, I'm going to just try to do my thing and, party and bullshit, talking to girls, doing this, beefing with other kids who want some bullshit. Like, I'm the New York nigga. I'm the New York dude. I got my other two boys here.
Well,
so
New
there's
York,
like all this other shit. Yeah. And it's
I already know. I went to high school in Honolulu and I was like, this is heavy fucking West Coast territory in the middle of that, like New York, Cali, East, West beef. So it's like, yo, I got a reputation to uphold. We scrapping every time. Yeah. You look at me wrong, we scrapping. Oh, this motherfucker.
So I think that would have benefited me if, like, if my parents had a little more, or even if it would have been somebody else, like somebody older who has been through it, to come hit me to it and also tell me shit. Like if there would have been somebody older from New York who actually did it and came back and told me, like, listen, it's going to be a lot of bullshit that you're not used to. You're going to see racism. You're going to see this and that, but keep your head focused. You know what I mean? You don't got to fight everybody. You don't got to represent New York to the fullest.
You had no OG to like really like pull you and hip you to the best way to navigate that situation. And with no previous experience in that situation, you did what most young people would do, which is like, just like whatever, wild the fuck out, figure it out as I go. And if it goes shot to shit, oh fucking well, no big deal, which is like legit, like most young people think, you know what I mean? Like they're not gonna, because you don't have the mental you don't have the wisdom yet to be able, to have the foresight to say those things,
and you don't have the ability to think that far forward in the future. Yeah, like you said, like the foresight. Your prefrontal cortex is still developing to keep it scientific. So I ended up leaving that first school, and then by then my parents had moved to Jersey, and I was like, nah, chill, I ain't doing this Jersey shit. So I ended up staying in the city with other family, like nah. Stayed back in Washington Heights for another couple years, and then got into another engineering school in the Bronx, Manhattan College. And I thought, all right, bet I'm gonna slide through this. And then again, the same shit. I'm still messing with chicks. And then that's when rap really started like plugging in. And it was like, oh shit, like I really like this shit. And you skip class to go smoke trees. And even there was some little beef, some other things where you just like, oh, all right, I'm gonna just bag this book and sell this back to the bookstore. Oh, I'm gonna just steal this couple things from the bookstore. Like mischievous dumb shit that really like has nothing to do with why you're supposed to be there.
Typical young person shit.
Yeah, because now I have that same level of freedom, but I'm in New York. So even though I'm staying with
Right.
family, it was still less restrictive as staying with my parents. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like I'm staying
Yeah.
with my cousin and his parents, and it was still kind of like, all right, you know, we expect you to do well, but we're not there on your shit. Like, yo, like, did you do your work today? Like, you know, none of that. So then eventually I start doing hip hop. I start freestyling with cats. Certain people are telling me like, yo, you're good. You should start trying to write. Like, your freestyles are good and everything, but you should start trying to write. And then, you know, that's really what kind of like plugged me in. And it was
So, yeah,
like, all right.
when was this? Like
So
when?
this was I graduated high school in 93, went up to that school in upstate in 93. By the end of 93, I was already back in New York, missed the fall semester of the spring semester in 94, moved to family's house in 94. And then by fall of 94, I was already kind of back in this second engineering school in the Bronx. So 94, 95, 96, it would be like off and on, because some semesters it was like I was in school, some semesters I was taking a part-time. There was one semester that I skipped and I was just working, but still like living in the Heights and still ostensibly trying to be an engineer in my mind.
Right.
But again, like, you know, shit happens. And then before I didn't finish that, I was doing horrible in that school. And it wasn't necessarily because I couldn't do the work. It was because I was just learning more outside of class, dealing with, you know, messing with chicks and smoking trees.
No, man, I
and
get
doing
it though.
hip-hop
Like,
and,
I totally,
you know,
I skipped a whole lot of class, man. I spent my whole first year because we had this thing called Cégep in Quebec. Basically, this shit is like university, but at like a more high school pace. It's in between. So you get there when you're like 17, and then you become an adult at this shit. And like, I'm gonna say that I skipped a lot of class and learned a whole lot about life not going to class while at school. So I totally
yeah.
understand how you can not be there. I just
Yup.
got lucky I could pass.
Yeah, nah, personally
Yeah.
speaking, I got left back in fucking 7th grade. And that was because I was cutting school that early. You know what I mean? Like also like all sorts of reasons, right? Like my parents were having complications with my little brother. He was born with a heart murmur. All these reasons that they were not being able to be attentive. And in their not being attentive to me as a kid, I was just like, cutting school, bitches, smoking weed.
And this is
fucking
what,
with
in the
chicks.
Bronx, Dutch?
This is in the Bronx in 7th grade, right?
What
Like,
school?
so how old are you? Like 135, which is I went to the same middle school as Ralph Lauren, and I went to junior high school at the same exact time as Swizz Beatz and Cool Kid. But like Swizz Beatz was older than me, so like I was only there. We were only in school at the same time for like 1 year, you know what I mean? And then he graduated, and I guess he went down to Atlanta, according to like how his own bio in the music industry goes, right? For high school. And but I was there. Cool Kid was my contemporary. So like Cool Kid, if you remember Cool Kid, not Cool Kid, Cool Kid who was around before him, he was like the DJ that like fucking DJ'd like my fucking junior high school dances and shit. You know what I'm saying? Which were at that time, by the way, you probably right, like if we're talking like 92, 91. So like this is like heavy dance hall vibes in New York City, right? Like heavy dance hall vibes in New York City, and you grinding up on girls for the first time. You fucking 6th grade, 7th grade and shit.
Yup.
Shouts to that hot shit, yo. Word up. So yes, I can super see eye to eye, empathize with cutting school. So don't feel like you out here all alone. Like
But also like
I got a whole left back from school from cutting so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I barely got through that first year. I just, also my parents told me go into science. If you go into science for a year, we'll leave you alone for the rest of your life. And I'm not an adult yet, so they have a lot more power over me at this point. So I do it, and I do not like sciences. I mean, I can understand it. Like math isn't hard; it's just boring. and the homework was terrible and it took forever. And I do not want to spend 10 hours doing math homework. Like, it's just not fun when you're 18 and you're trying to fuck at the end of the day. So
yeah,
like,
that's
I
all
just,
that matters at that, you know, like
right.
when
And I had a girl
once
at that
boys
time.
turn a certain age, it's like our fucking focus can be singular like a motherfucker. And that
I got
fucking
like the
focus,
first
I know for
girlfriend, it was
me,
over.
it was all the way girls.
Once
like,
Pandora's
soon as,
box is
yeah,
open,
over.
it
once,
cannot be closed.
yeah, like
It's done.
once I had that fucking first like busting of a nut on my own at home, it was like, oh yeah, nah, this is on the popping.
This is where it's
I'm
at.
trying
This
to
is
get.
this is the goal.
Voltron and GI Joe ain't holding no torch to this.
But, like,
let me tell you.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yo,
Also,
but
just
hold
like
on.
especially if you
shout
just
out.
don't like, you don't like the shit, right? Like, anyway.
Yeah, that's the other thing. That I was just peeping in the comments. Kai Vase said that he went to college in Troy too. So shout out to Kai Vase. We gotta build on that. but so college over there, then in the Bronx, and then basically I was still in my mind going for this engineering degree, and then in 1997 in May, my pops died. And they had already been living in Jersey. So that was like immediately like, I'm out to Jersey. And then right at that same time, like 6 weeks before that, I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So that was another like clusterfuck, like life-changing shit. So I end up moving to Jersey and, you know, dealing with this whole new shit. I got to like take insulin and all kind of crazy shit, which was like not cool for a 21-year-old, like, especially because you don't like really understand it as well.
Right.
But so like we were talking about with responsibility, 21-year-olds aren't very responsible. You know what I mean?
Right. It would have
like
been different if I was diagnosed with diabetes as a younger kid, because then I'd have grown up with it and it would have been like, you know, under my parents' supervision, I would have learned how important it was to do the right things and eat the right things and focus, you know what I mean? And it would have actually changed up the way I lived my life for a period, you know what I mean? Like, and help with structure in certain ways. So then when I moved to Jersey, I'm still thinking that I'm gonna like be this engineer. I go to the community college in Jersey, and that's where I meet my whole crew. That's where, you know, that's when I'm like starting to write all the time. And so my crew is called Hedonic Experience. I don't think any of y'all, if y'all look back at certain old EOW, maybe EOW footage, there's definitely some, I have CDs and shit from like the first couple EOW CDs that was put out, like Special Forces and a couple other things. But so Hedonic Experience, we pretty much all met in Jersey. It was a 6-man crew, but now it's actually 7 because Juggler is he was always a member, but now he's like officially a member. But so then we just basically started like spitting, and at that point I'm still doing the college thing again, flunking out, still like smoking trees and doing all of this shit. And then I also start pitching. So that was a whole nother, because I'm the dude from Washington Heights. I'm coming to Jersey, and it's like such an opportunity. It's like such an opportunity.
You'd have been a fool not to take care of it.
Right. It's kind of like, all right, you know, my man's got the heat. Like, I just, you know, whatever. So that just completely changed shit, because then now on top of that, it's kind of like, okay, so I have the one distraction. I have the one distraction from school, which is hip hop. And then there's this other thing that's actually also putting money in my pocket. And, you know, with my dad gone, it's kind of like, okay, I could pitch in something at the crib too. So it was kind of like, all right. And so we still trying to do it. I'm still trying to do the college stuff. And then, so that was late 90s. And then in the year 2000 in May, my older brother dies. So at that point, it was kind of like, and it was literally like 6 days. Actually, what's today? The 25th. Tomorrow makes 22 years of my brother's passing. And thank you. And he's the one that put me on the hip hop, which is ill. Word. But at that point, it was kind of like, what the fuck am I doing in college right now? Like, you know what I'm saying? My mom just lost my dad and her oldest son. It's like, rather than sitting in college accumulating debt, I might as well be out in the job force. I also got my little side gig making that paper. But in my mind, I'm like, yo, rap is the thing. Rap will be the way that I'll do some other work for now, stay doing my side thing, and then rap will be the thing. You know what I mean? So boom, that's when I left school in like, what was that? 2000, probably like 2000 was like my official last semester, or 2000 or 2001 was like my official last semester at that point in school. And then it was just hip hop hardcore. We formed a group, me and Hypnotic Experience. We kind of formed a group. We start doing shows we started doing shows at this spot in Hoboken called Love Sexy, which is how we meet Zoo and Nunn, who were also doing shows in Love Sexy, but on a different night than us. And so we see these flyers about end of the week. So by the time 2000 rolls around, we weren't there for the very first EO dub, but probably within the first 3 months, we was like, yo, this is the shit. Like, we're going here. Like, prior to that, the only other thing was
like by the
New
third or
Eurekans.
fourth EO dub, you were already in there.
By the third or fourth, by the second or third month that they're doing EO dub back in Baby Jupiter, me and my team, we go in there. It's like Sunday nights.
Yeah, so if you were at Baby Jupiter, you were at the beginning.
The very beginning.
You might not have been have been there for episode 1. You know, issue 1, you know what I mean? Volume 1.
But I was in challenge 1.
You were still there for volume 1. You were still there for volume 1, issue number 7 or 6. You know what I mean? Like, so what? You missed the first 5 episodes. Like, you were still there for the first season. You know, I definitely did not walk up in there for the first season, sir.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Not even that many people that we talk to connected to the dub right now that are still involved in some way are there from that far back. Like, you definitely rank pretty OG on the OG list.
I'll tell you the people that was down from season 1. So Breeze Ever Flowing, definitely down from season 1. Poison Pen is also down from season 1.
Poison Pen's the OG of everything.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? There's a couple heads that are still around. Obviously, you know, Zoo and Pro. But yo, so we start going that fall 2000. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So before you get into that, right? So you guys form your group, and before you start performing, are you guys like recording music? Like, are you guys making songs? Like, how is that whole side of life going?
All right, so we would mainly like spit over instrumentals and rap and freestyle and do our little ciphers. And then, you know, Sheck from my group, from Hypnotic, he knew a couple producers. So there was this one producer who lived in like Piscataway, New Jersey. So it was a little drive, but we was like, yo,
I stay using Piscataway as like that Piscataway. My first go-to usually is like Podunk Shittown, USA, right? Like, that's my go-to like generalization when I'm trying to like tell people like, you know, like random Americana, not an actual city, town, right? Podunk Shittown, USA. But then like my next like go-to is like, you know, fucking Piscataway. You know what I mean?
Well, I've never heard that word. Like, I'm not even gonna lie.
I'm like one of those like like Pleasantville, New York. That it's just like, whoa.
Yo, funny thing is that there's also a Piscataway, New York.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. Yeah, but New York and Jersey share a lot of like town names and
town names. Yeah. So, but anyways, so this dude, so Sheck knows this guy who's got beats, and basically we take the trip down. So it's me, Sheck, Preem, and our other boy, Eye Contact. So 4 out of the original 6 members of Hypnotic. We take a drive down, and then we record a song. I want to say this gotta be probably like May. No, wait, not May. Actually, before it had to be like March or April 2000. We go do this one song called Deadly Debate, and we sweated the shit out of it, but it was, you know, crude at best. But it was like my first time recording. Like, before then, I had recorded little freestyles on instrumentals with like a 4-track recorder that I had, just you know, and they're not freestyles, but they're like little written verses, not much structure. Like
Still,
I'm writing bars.
you're doing better than your average guy back in the day.
Facts.
Like,
I mean,
you know,
so
like
Because there you go. You got to keep in mind, like you might look at it in
I
a
didn't have a 4
perspective
track.
of like because you're like coming at a point where less people have access. Like the older you are with
Yeah.
this, the more impressive it is when you pull it off and find a way to make that happen in your life.
Yeah. So here's the one thing. There was a pivotal event like right around the time that I meet Hednotic for my 24th birthday in the year 2000 in January. I went to Tokyo for my 24th birthday.
Okay.
One of my friends was studying abroad there. Then like my best friend and another one of our boys, we all went there to like for 2 weeks to just like give him his crash course. You're in a new country for months. We're gonna go to like help you learn everything and learn the city. And yo, Tokyo was so dope, and they were such huge hip hop fans. So that shit plugged me so hard. Like over there,
That's super.
we would go to the record stores, and this is the year 2000, and you'd go to the biggest record store in like the most hip hop part of the town called Shibuya, and right next to the Jay-Z record is the Black Star record. So stuff that were over here was separated by underground or backpacker and mainstream was embraced on both sides over there. They were super fiends. Like we would be there, and yo, that trip in Tokyo was just one for the ages, for real, for real. But we would leave the club, and I'd start rhyming because when we were out there, we met some dudes that were from New York, and they actually turned out to be like hip hop heads. And they actually, you remember the break dancers in 42nd Street?
Yeah, of course.
The first crew that started that shit, that's who we met in Japan, because after a certain point, they decided to take their show on the road, and they ended up in Japan doing it. And then by the time I meet them in the year 2000, they have visas, they have studios, they have equipment, they're set up. There's this one dude from Harlem, his name was D Flex. And he was the one that gave me the 4-track. I recorded a little song with them. Oh, wait, so actually, damn, I fucked up. That song, Deadly Debate, was actually in 1999 because I know that I recorded in Japan in the year 2000 with this whole crew. But anyways, rolling with them, we be in the club. We met them in the club or some shit, and then after that, was like, yo, whatever. I'd be outside the club. The club just let out, and I start kicking a verse for these cats, and in like 15 seconds, a crowd of 40 people just surround me. Like, because I'm rapping. And I was like, wow. The dudes were like, yo, bro, you nice. Just stay. Don't take your flight back home. Just stay. We'll figure it out. You'll get a visa. Dope. Like, and I was like really considering it. Like, what? I was really, really considering.
What? You
like,
didn't do it?
Nah. I had to come back home. I would have had to come back home anyway, because then 4 months later, my brother dies. So either way, it wouldn't have worked out. Like it was just, but it wasn't enough to like give me that.
It's a great feeling though. That must have been you said spark plug. Yeah. That must have been the all the fuel in the tank, the battery in your back, all that.
And how the girls love New Yorkers. How they loved me from being but they're in particular for just being that dude from New York. Like they just wanted to be seen like walking, holding your hand and shit. Like, so it really felt like, wow, like I could really, really, really shine out here. But ultimately I knew that, yo, I'm really gonna like start going real hard on this shit. Like really, really, really hard on this shit. Also, wait, so there's another person.
Tokyo.
Yeah, shout out to Tokyo. I ended up going back, but we'll get into that later. Also, there's one other person who's like greatly influential and key to my hip hop journey, which is my boy Rich, Authentic, Elohim. Like he's had a bunch of different names, but he was a producer that I had met through another friend. I met Authentic probably in like 98. And he actually, by the time I met him, he already had a beat on Soundbomb and 1. So he was already
Okay.
like getting placements
I don't
and
know what
shit like
sound
that.
bombing one is.
Sound
Sound
Bombing is
Bombing
like a
one-
compilation album. No, wait, was it Sound Bombing or what was the other one? Lyricist Lounge? No, wait, they had two different.
Yeah,
companies.
those. Yeah, they were
Okay.
both on
Sound Bombing
Raucous
one. Nah, it was
Records.
definitely it was definitely Sound Bombing
Lyricist
one.
Lounge, I believe, came first.
No,
was
actually, I
Sound
think
Bombing-
Sound Bombing.
I think Sound Bombing, the first one came first.
Right.
Then came Lyricist Lounge
Right.
1. Then came Sound Bombing 2.
Right.
And then came Lyricist
Lyricist
Lounge 2.
Yeah. So by the time I met Rich, I'm gonna just call him
Okay.
Rich, but right now I think he goes by Mono and Stereo, or he changed his name a lot. But he's since then gone on to produce for like Your Old Droog. He's produced for Prodigy. I think he has a beat out on the new what's his name? Bam Bam. What's his name? Damn. Action Bronson. Yeah.
Bronson.
Yeah, I think because I actually talked to him. We was texting a couple of weeks back, and he said that he's got a beat on the Action Bronson. But anyways, so me and him meet right around the same time that I meet Hypnotic Experience in Jersey, and me and him decide to form a group, like a DJ and an MC, kind of, Reflection
Classic.
Eternal style,
Right.
DJ Premier and Guru style, like
Yeah.
So that's
All the
our
greats.
idea. Yeah, that's our idea, and we became a group. We became a group called Sound Strange. So while at the same time I formed Hypnotic Experience out in Jersey with these other 5 brothers, I'm also in a group called Sound Strange with my brother Authentic, who he was based out of Inwood, so which is basically like that last part of Manhattan, which is right above Washington Heights. So we have a lot of the same kind of affinities for hip hop and all of that. And dude was a fiend for hip hop, like one of the most creative people I've ever met to date, like regardless. So at that same time, we're doing kind of both. We're like, I'm really involved over here and involved over there. Matter of fact, with Authentic, before I left to Japan, we had a studio session with him and some of the brothers of Hypnotic Experience in a studio called Uniques, which is like right by Times Square. So yeah, and we paid wild guap for that. That shit was hilarious. And we recorded like 3 songs in like an 8-hour session or whatever. But we was already like really working on, getting a nice demo together, things like that. Like it was really like, yo, and we putting up bread for that. So probably for Uniques, I think we was probably paying like, damn, I'm trying to think. I know that we each paid like 500 just for the session time. And so, yeah, between me and him, we paid $1,000 for an 8-hour session. So, you know what I'm saying? And I think,
old school prices.
Those are old school prices.
And that's not even today's money. That's like the 2000 money.
Exactly.
Exactly.
You do the inflation calculator on that.
Which is super like the entry is super limited. Back then it was a very small, like, to be able to do all those things was a feat within itself.
So out of curiosity though, just on that note, like in 2000, is that a good price for a studio? Because like, do you have a lot of other options?
So here's the thing. This is before home studios. This is really before like
right.
I mean,
right
it's right at the infancy of Pro Tools and all of these things. So at that point, that was a decent price. And also our session was literally like December 28th, 1999. So we're looking out the window of Uniques and we're seeing the cops like set up for and the city set
Times
up
for New
Times
Year's.
That's what.
Yeah. It was crazy. But it was dope. And it was kind of like, again, just like, yo, this is, I feel
back then there was no such thing as like a at-home studio like that.
Right.
Nope.
Back then, I mean, there were people recording at home, but it was a very like
primitive.
Very primitive.
It's not
Right.
it's
Very
not the
primitive.
type of shit that you're gonna be able to record something and have it even be viable as a demo tape.
No.
Because that's like, so basically it's like, unless you're really able to put out that $1,000 to get a session, you're really not getting that quality for demos.
Well,
or
all
whatnot.
right. So some of the technology was starting to come along, but we didn't really have it yet. So by the time 2000 rolls around, though, the brother Authentic ends up buying a DAW, a digital audio workstation. It was like a Roland thing, but basically a multi-track recorder. So after that point, you know, we would start to do the pre-production and pre-recordings of songs right at his crib. So I don't know, y'all might have heard this song by me and Authentic called Capitalism. It was on it was on the first EO Dub CD. It was on the Special Forces CD. And I think I don't know, maybe it might have played early on in the Zoom era too, but like just played just because none like played it. But Capitalism was a joint that we recorded at the at Authentic's house, Rich's house, and it was still, you know, it was good for what it was, but it was still like when we went on to do other records, we would go to studios. So we'll get into when we went to Unique Studio. I mean, Electric Lady Studio multiple times, and that was a real fun time.
New York City studios.
Yeah. When we went to Electric Lady, there was a lot of dope shit.
Electric Lady, D&D, Quad, Daddy's House, like, you know,
36 Chambers. Yeah, but that was that era, and so at that point, it's kind of like when 2000 rolls around, it's like, yo, I'm all in for this hip hop shit. I got this other side shit, and I'm also temping and kind of like getting into this other kind of like healthcare field with the temp shit, and it's working. It's sweet, like, you know what I mean? At that point, I think for 2000, I was still at the crib with my mom, and then by 2001 she moved out, and then I'm just at the crib dolo, and I started getting roommates, and then life just starts to speed up from that point. You know, we keep making music, we keep, you know, going to EO Dub. So EO Dub really helped us sharpen our swords, our performance game. In the first couple years, we pretty much went unbroken for like the first 3 years, easily the first 3 years, probably even more. And there's a lot of memorable shit. You see a lot of dope artists that we saw from like then, and it was just like, wow, like you start to really get a picture. Cause like for us, like when we see like an artist like Breeze and Penn and that whole clique, it was just like, wow, this is really, really like, we're nice, but there's more levels to this shit and it starts to soak in. Like, this is something that I could do. Unlike when I was in college and I'm studying engineering, like that feeling, that kind of passion for it never came at that point for that. But for this, it was like, oh, that's it. That's it.
You were ready to stay extra time. You were ready to put in the work that you needed to get it cracking. You were in.
And EO Dub was on Sunday. So it was like, this is just as important as work the next morning. So I was a dude that was notorious for not sleeping, notorious for getting shit done. So it was like, I'm driving, we all going to EO Dub, and then whatever time we get home, and I got to be up for work tomorrow, and I did it. That was it. It was I'm not doing this and that. None of that. Right. And then also at the same time pitching. So it's kind of like, when I get out of that job, then I have another job, and then my phone is just like, you know, there's somewhere around in this world in some garbage can, there's a Motorola Razr that has made so much bread for the kid. Like, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I mean, it was great times. There's a couple of memorable.
It's not in the garbage can. You know what I mean? Like, they better have picked up the garbage between back then and now.
No.
It should be in like a landfill. Landfill. Word.
That's hilarious.
But in
EO Dub, I don't need no 20-year-old garbage shit in New York.
But in EO Dub, it was really EO Dub was really, really, really college for the hip hop shit.
Word.
That was really, really, really college.
And you like know what EO Dub has always had is like, go back, circle the block on a word used at the beginning, right? Like, it's exciting. It's exciting. You know, like the energy in the dub when it's cracking, which is like back then it was every Sunday, you know, like every Sunday there was something different. Like, everybody has a different memory, but it's kind of like the same memory, you know. But it was all different Sundays, you know. But what was it? It was fucking exciting. You know, like back then, it all the way up until when I got there, which was like already Pyramid. I think I got there maybe like in 2006, 5,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. 2005 or 6 or something like that. Uh, it's always been just exciting, right? Like you're meeting like your comrades. Like you're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
these guys are
Mm-hmm.
from Jersey. These guys are from Queens.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody was coming from all over the city and shit. So
Yeah,
it's like,
man.
yeah.
And so like I was saying, so for one, there's a couple cool things about Baby Jupiter. Just like it is in New York now, we could blow in there and it was no problem. So somehow they was cool. It was BYOB and BYO Tree. So it was
What?
going
That's super
down
lit.
in Baby Jupiter. Like
Yo,
it
that
was
is
like,
the number one thing I ever dream about in any place. Like if you can light up.
mm, yo, it was really, really, really like nothing else in the city at that point. Because back then you could still smoke cigarettes in bars and clubs, but smoking weed was a little bit more like, like we
Taboo.
would do it. You could kind of do it if the
You
place,
could kind of get
especially,
away with it. You could kind of get
but
away
it
with it.
wasn't sanctioned like this. It
No.
wasn't like I remember distinctly hearing Zoo on the mic like advertise like, yo, come through, it's BYOB, bring that. You could bring your other stuff too and put something in the air. And yo, that's how we was. We would show up, we sit in like one of the front tables and pull out big ass jars like boop, 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 and just like rolling blunts and just like it was
Yo,
just
that sounds like
electric.
awesome.
It
I
was
just
electric, bro.
I don't know why nobody else brought that up before. That's lit.
Yeah. Baby Jupiter. And it's funny because so Baby Jupiter, I think I had mentioned it before. I was in the first MC challenge. And this was Scram Jones was DJing. Scram Jones when he basically invented the beat juggle. This is before there was a grab bag. So they still had that round, but they were just 3 words that were kind of being repeated throughout, and then you kind of had to
The
just kind of
first,
keep incorporating.
out the mouth of somebody who was there for the first one, hearing how different it is, it's like,
Yeah, the
it's like
challenge has
what?
really
I
evolved.
thought that the challenge was always the challenge, but it's like, no, why would it always be the thing? You got to
Yup.
develop the thing. What the fuck is wrong with you? What would make you think that this didn't require development across many
Yup.
years and shit?
Yeah,
But you
and
never
it got
think that, right? Like
Facts.
when you get
Nah,
there afterwards,
I
it's
get
just
the
like,
idea that
yeah,
it's like, and I'm sure that they all told us that too. Like when we interviewed Nunzio, but you just, you hear about the challenge. It's the challenge.
nah, none of
yeah.
them
I
didn't
think
mention
it's
that.
also
None of
it's
them
like
mentioned like it being different.
I'm speaking as a contestant.
Right,
So it's
exactly.
like a different, there's different nuances that none might pick up that that I'm probably not mentioning, So, but yeah, so that first challenge, and it was ill because it was like Webified won it, Immortal Technique came in second, and then I was in third.
That is crazy, son.
Yeah.
Like that's that's a super like legit like yo, you got nothing to feel bad about. Like you
No,
won a bronze medal, bro. You know what I mean? Like you won a bronze medal the first inaugural year when you went up against who? Fucking Webified and Immortal Technique, who came in second place. You know what I mean? Like Immortal Technique had to eat second place. Like third place is like
nah,
wild culture.
it just felt special. It felt special to be part of this because we could sense like, yo, this, because I had also been at New Yorican shits and there was different ways people would approach it. Most people would spit a written, I forget what it was called, but they would have like 4 people up there, and it was like once a month there was like a New Yorican event that was more kind of like challenge-esque, I want to say, but it wasn't a battle either, but it was more like people are spitting the verses and then the crowd is going to say who moves on or whatever. This was more structured, it was more conceptual, and it was heat, it was talent. Not to say that whoever was spitting at New Yorican wasn't talent, but just this was just like the essence, like really really like this is really what it's about.
I think exciting really is like the right term, like the right
Nah, it
word
sounds like
for EO Dub, right? Like because it is that. It's like there's a different level of excitement when it comes to like performing and like competing in other ways. Like at the dub, it felt like, yo, this is Sparta. You know what I mean? Like you get a feeling in there where it's just like, this is Sparta. Like this is like the elite. You know what I'm saying? Like you walk in there and you start seeing the level of performance of people in there, and you're like, okay, all right, this is the elite. I gotta step my shit up.
I'm gonna do one thing to take y'all back and let y'all see something. So just bear with me for a second.
All right.
Word, we good. We're not gonna sit here in silence either.
Nah, I mean, I was just a little bit like, whoa, we getting a special demonstration. We get to look inside of his closet. I know, but I'm like one of those dudes who can't help but be curious.
This is a season 1 EO dub shirt, right?
What? Look at how baggy that shit looks like it is. That shit look like it's like a XXL, and you do not look like a XXL, sir.
I prolific.
High society. Yo, shouts to High Society. Eye to Eye, Solid Ground. Wow, man, it's crazy. That's because it was wild. Still, it wasn't like they were not Three Kings yet. You know what I mean? Like they weren't even the Three Kings yet. This was so early on that they weren't even. It wasn't even set. Like the legacy wasn't even. It was the beginning when things were still.
Yeah, that's like a big piece of history.
Yeah, I have about 4 or 5 different ones. Like, look, I'll just go a little bit deeper. Hold on.
This is fantastic. Holden's getting his jollies off, looking inside of somebody else's closet. What is wrong?
Yeah, I'm fucking. Holden? I can't help it. Yo, my mom trained me to be this way. My mom just trained me to be like this. I tried not to, but can't help it.
So I have.
Yo, you fit right in with some fucking with like Latin women. No, yes.
So I have that shirt basically in a bunch of different colors. But here's another throwback from one of the great legends that started this shit.
Woof. Scram with the nice
with the Sixers shit. The Sixers. This is from the Sixers.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, and then there's a lot of other shit. I remember when Olivier was doing the Dubkavist show. Look, these are the dog tags. The original EOW dog tags.
That's crazy. Original.
Yeah. I remember, and it's ill because Vice was the one that kind of like was so behind this and so like spearheaded this. He was like, yo, and he was the one that had to connect to get them done. Collected all the bread from everybody and then came back, gave everybody their shit. And that was our shit. That was
he went to the Army Navy place.
That was like our identifier.
It's so funny how like back then it's like
plug.
Yo, he got the plug. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, the plug at the fucking Army Navy place. Where they stamped them shits.
Yo, but that was dope because it was like it was the conception of the brand. It was the conception of the brand, of the culture, of the movement.
No, absolutely.
And it's kind of like I think that's
the fact that he had the foresight to like shit like that is like, yo, that is like
that's basically like an NFT in real life.
Not even, hold on. I was gonna say that's more along the lines of like, yo, that's team building. That creates team building.
Yeah, he definitely.
That creates a bond. That creates an energy and a vibe. That little things like that, you'd be surprised. Now you got motherfuckers that'll bleed for you over some motherfucking dog tags. You heard, like, but it's just the sentiment that it's like, yo, now. Like, this is our shield. This is our brotherhood. This is what the fuck we repping. This is what the fuck we about right now. And that shit.
And I think also it's kind of like
shit people die over. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody died over this, but I'm saying, you know, and I don't want people to die. And dying isn't like a good standard, right? But like, I think that the willingness to bleed over something and die for something shows the passion that people have for the thing. And that passion is what interprets to 20 years of something.
So you're hitting on something I want to touch on. So like
22 years.
We didn't know Danny, what it was gonna end up to be.
I got
it. We didn't know it was gonna end up to be this huge international movement at that time.
Of course,
you know what I mean. We couldn't. in Baby Jupiter, we couldn't even see past Baby Jupiter.
Vice did.
No, so that's the thing. That's what makes Vice, like Vice was just like, he was the battery of a lot of shit. He was the idea generator of a lot of shit. And now in retrospect, we're like, yo, this motherfucker really had the whole shit mapped out from way back when. But along the way, so like I just mentioned the first challenge. From my crew, DeCapo was in the second challenge, and I think Drift was in it. There was a couple other dope heads. I think, was Zeps in it? No, the Zeps came later. But there was a couple other dope dudes. Then fast forward to 9/11. Yo, that 9/11 cipher was a skeleton crew. It was like me and Shek and Preem from my crew, Breeze, Penn. I think this cat Subcon was there. Zoo, Vice, and Pro.
Yo, leave it to Penn. Penn is.
But it was sad. It was crazy. It was crazy because like the whole city was just different. It was literally 9/11 was like on what? It was like what, a Tuesday or some shit? Yeah. I think it was like a Tuesday or a Wednesday.
It was in the. I know I was at school, so it was in the week.
Right. It was during the week. And this is the first Sunday after that. So this gotta be like September 16th or some shit, right? And the whole city was dead. And EO-Dub was still there.
And that's the first time that you can ever think back to the city ever being dead.
Like
pandemic. Like there was never a point in New York. Like we had blackouts in New York City. And guess what? City was not dead. Yes. Right? We was outside.
Yes.
We were outside. The party was popping. We were outside. We were, but when 9/11 happened, it was like, oh no, everybody was inside. Nobody was outside.
Yeah.
It was that was the first time ever that New York was like, everybody kind of was like, oh, I'm gonna go inside. Like this is kind of crazy.
It was a crazy time.
Buildings are dropping out this bitch. That was the first time that we ever had fucking fighter pilots. Like we got fucking fighter pilots. Like it felt like we was going to war. Like it felt like war was happening here in New York City. And that was just like, whoa, what the fuck? Yeah. Like never did you expect that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
facts.
and definitely.
And then that's the other thing. It's kind of like one of the biggest shining symbols that is New York that you could see from miles away was gone. Right. And so here you have EO-Dub, which is something that's, a little bit over a year old. There was no list that day. There was we just all went up.
It better not have been a list.
Everybody just freestyle. I mean, it was, how many people did I name?
Yeah, no,
not even
10. But this is also what I'm saying about
kind of went off of the top. Everybody just kind of freestyled off of the top, and everybody's just expressing shit that we never even could think about, would have never imagined before. And that's what made it church. That I think was right when we coined it as church, because it was like, it was just a collective New York City.
And it was Sundays. Come on.
Like, right.
Definitely
and it was just
Definitely
like a collective, like outpour of whatever's on our mind, whatever frustration, whatever's going on, that we had a place to go to voice that as creatives, as artists, as people from New York and New Jersey. We were able to get that off. And the shit from there, it was kind of like, it's like that scene in fucking Saving Private Ryan when they tell him like, yo, both of your brothers are done. And he's like, well, you're not going to take me home now. These are the brothers that I have. We're going to continue. Like, so that we was kind of just locked in. Like, listen, we came on a day where nobody else was even going out. Hip hop drew us in, and we were able to like collectively.
What day was it that the towers fell? What was it, like a Wednesday?
It was a Tuesday or a Wednesday, I think.
Tuesday or Wednesday. So by the time Sunday rolled around, it was still like quiet in the city.
It was
like,
still smoke piling up.
Yeah,
it was still smoke billowing up.
Wait, was it at Pyramid already, or was it Big?
Yeah, it was at Pyramid by then.
It was at Pyramid.
So
Pyramid is Lower East Side, which is like maybe like about what, like 5 neighborhoods.
Yeah, it was a Tuesday.
From 5 neighborhoods away from the Twin Towers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because that's like that. That's the Lower East Side is like that we're talking about essentially. Like Lower East Side is the opposite of Lower West Side, which is where the fuck the goddamn towers were and shit. You know what I mean?
right.
Like, so
Right,
yeah,
right. And
right.
so
So
it
for
was just
y'all
like
to
that
be
shit
at the
just
dub
broke.
there is
That shit
crazy.
just brought us together like in a way that could never kind of be quantified. And then even after that, so I remember because New York kept gradually returning. So at first, that was the West Side Highway only went down to a certain point, and then you had to get off. And there was certain roads and shit that was closed off. You couldn't go south past a certain point. I remember like the following week or a couple weeks later, there was an EO Dub related show. I don't know if it was a Diverse City show, but I know Scram was performing, I think, in Knitting Factory. And not where Knitting Factory is now, in the old Knitting Factory, which is on Reed Street or Duane Street, like right over there, like 10 blocks away. So I remember going to that show, but also seeing that you couldn't go down further past a certain point, and smoke still billowing up from wherever like Tower 7 was and shit. Yeah. And it was just crazy because it's like, yo, hip hop step kept moving on. We were still kind of cementing this movement. And it was still like, all right, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're going to carry this torch because hip hop is driving us to that point where it's like, yo, it's creative expression. It's a way to not dwell on this shit. And it's like, yo, it's again back to like, it's super like, we're so alive at that point, you know? So 2001, I'm 25 years old. You know what I'm saying? About to be 26. And it's just like,
that's wild.
Wow, like, yeah. So
you're like old enough to know what's going on. Like when that shit happened, I was 12. I did not understand. Did not understand.
I had just came back from Atlanta. I had moved down to Atlanta for a year, and like, you know, the year before in 2000, and I just was, you know, probably like the first wave of New Yorkers moving down to Atlanta and shit, you know? And I was young, and like I had a homie who was like down there and like hustling. And so I moved down there, but then I came back to New York City, literally fleeing charges and like fleeing Georgia. And like the week of 9/11, like days later, the fucking towers fell. It was that Tuesday and shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. So then, all right, let me think. So fast forward 2002, a year later, I go to like London and Amsterdam for the first time. And that shit was dope. And it's funny because another one of the EO Dub residency guests, Double AB, me and him, we was cool through our friend Steve, and they went to college together. So he's studying abroad in London. And this is 2002. And we go out there to chill with him and go to Amsterdam. So this is how crazy shit was. It was literally a year and a day after 9/11. We find round trip tickets from JFK to London Heathrow for $175.
What?
Yes, $175. We fly there. We meet Double AB, who was studying abroad. And then we take a small train to a smaller airport and then take an easy jet to Amsterdam for 4 days and then fly back and then spend 4 days in London. So it was like life, like, yo, super dope adventures. We almost got into some shit in London. We almost really, it almost really went down with some roughneck characters out there.
Yeah. But they got hoods. They got hoods everywhere you go. But being to New Yorkers, we gonna walk up in everywhere like, hey, this is my city now.
Yo, dudes was really trying to dudes was really trying to pocket tap on us, and we was lucky to make it out of there with no altercation whatsoever. But shit was real. So that was 2002. So again, like the international travel bug just really like, I'm just like energized by the whole shit. Then 2003 is a dope EO Dub memory where we went So EOW basically had started arranging like these little tours. So it was like a little radio spot in Detroit, and then a show in House of Blues in Chicago. So there was only limited space on the drive out west. So I flew out there. I flew to Chicago, and I was just going to meet them. And basically, so they make the drive. They go, they hit up that little radio station in Detroit, and then meet us in Chicago. They were supposed to stay in Detroit, but I think they just ended up booking straight to Chicago. That shit was amazing. Just being in Chicago with the whole group of people. We have a show. I guess that show was that Sunday night. So we're there from Friday evening, Saturday, all day Saturday. And then Sunday night was the show in House of Blues. And we're opening up, I think, for nonfiction. And I still have like pictures of this shit, but it was so dope. Like a whole collective. This is when I already started to feel like, yo, we're a fucking movement. Like we're dead ass a movement, because you got a van full of motherfuckers, and then you got a bunch of us that also flew. We all end up staying in like this W in like the Loop area. Real dope shit that it just kind of the proto like internet. I mean, the internet was out, but it was kind of like we found our tickets on Orbitz, and it was like $130 trip from Newark to Chicago, because they were like daily flights. And yo, the shit all worked out really dope. This was actually in July of 2003. And so I have pictures of that shit. I performed, like, basically it was like every group got one song. So there was a Solid Ground song that performed, a Eye to Eye song that performed. So two brothers from Hypnotic, Sheck and Preem, who are also a group called Third Eye Navigators, they performed a song, and then I performed Capitalism, which was me and my boy Authentic Sounds Strange. And it was super ill. It was just like, wow, this is the life. It's like I'm starting to get an idea of like, this is the life that I was hoping it was gonna be. Like, this is what it is.
Right.
And yo, this shit is like, I could think back to so many facets of that trip like it was yesterday, because it was just like that feeling of like, we're clicked up, we're dope, we're nice, like you know what I mean? We're bringing the flag. We putting down that flag.
Like it was already like you guys had already done all the team building exercises, and now it was game time, and you guys performed.
Man.
And you performed,
man.
And it was exciting, and so that makes the brotherhood even more. Like now you got championship rings together. You know what I'm saying? Like now it's like, oh, we won. Pop the champagne.
Right. And it's like there was no other New York crews doing this type of shit. There was no other New York, like,
definitely.
Obviously, like,
I could tell you, I was in a New York crew. We were not doing that. So
right. But the whole thing, but the whole dope thing was that also in the dub, everybody else is coming through, and everybody else is coming through those gates. So, all right, we already mentioned Immortal Technique. Jin was also coming through those gates too, right before he signed with Rough Riders. Scram, and then his brother, our brother, Jack Venom, who was also signed to Pharrell's label, I think around that time too. So there was a lot of cats who was on that come up, on that cusp, that really were still passing through the dub. Dutchman, you know what I'm saying? And then that's when it's like the doors, it was still kind of like an open door policy. Like if you nice, you're going to swing through here and you're going to get love, and you're going, real hip hop is going to be in the building. So you always going to get love. You always going to like link with like minds, and the platform is there to be shared. That was the greatest part about EOW, because like not only were the hosts nice enough to just fucking rock the whole night and not show love to nobody, just be like, look, fuck this. We could rock for these 4 hours on us. But it wasn't about that. It was about like, look, we're super nice and we want y'all to be nice, or we want y'all to get nice too, or y'all already, like, you know what I mean? Just show love to everybody.
You're already nice. Take the stage. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
All those,
and then
it ranged all the tiers from the top to the bottom. And it was circling back, it was even. It was even Stevens, goddamn it.
Right. Yes.
Everybody
That's the
got the
thing.
everybody got
And
to
we
go.
also like learned from each other. We also like held each other down. We also like moved mad deep. You know what I'm saying? Like that shit just gives you an extra edge, a little confidence. Not on some like dickhead shit, like we're gonna start beef or whatever.
Yeah,
but you just know if we going somewhere to perform, it ain't gonna be on some bullshit. We ain't gonna get herbed. We ain't, you know what I mean? We gonna go rock and motherfuckers gonna be like, wow, like that's what I'm talking about. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then even in that, we was all getting nicer, and then we all start doing like other songs together amongst each other. So, you know, like it's funny because I'm like the pack rat of my crew where I have like a lot of shit. I have a whole memorabilia box and I could pull shit out for days. But as far as music, some of the older music, it's like I would have to dig in CDs. I don't be throwing away CDs. If it was a CD that I bought, I threw it away.
I still have my first fucking demo CDs and shit. Like
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that they don't play, but like I still have the actual CDs and shit.
What would you play it on?
I don't know. I don't
exactly.
have my computer.
Exactly.
You can buy a fucking thing for like literally $15 that you can plug into your computer.
Right, but that's the whole thing. You don't
but
have
you know what?
now.
I know wild people that do still have, like, I know a guy with a fucking charger, like a modern car, and he still has a CD player in there.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Like, what?
No, my current car still has a CD player, but it's like there's like 2 CDs that I keep in the car. Just like I have a copy of Illmatic that's in the car, just in case the whole shit goes down and the aux plug don't want to work. I can always play Illmatic. You know what I'm saying? In my old car, I used to have a cassette deck, and the only cassette in my car was Thriller. Of course, going back to that shit. But yeah, man, there was some really, really, really special moments that just helped make this movement become what it is, help me become who I am on the mic, and just like as far as like, you know, how to carry yourself in hip hop circles, how to make those connections, and just the inspiration wise, because you see a dude like Zoo and Vice going back and forth and bodying it. Me and my crew are going back home, not like we in competition, but we like, yo, these dudes is stepping it up. We got to stay sharp. You know, we would have our meetings on Mondays, and it was always like, yeah, we're going to politic and talk about whatever moves we trying to make and whatever next joint we trying to record and what studio we got to get into. But we also going to freestyle. We also going to rap. We also going to pass it around. You're going to spit what the verse that you wrote yesterday or 2 days ago. I'm gonna spit my newest verse. You know what I'm saying? Keeping each other sharp, because that's the shit we're gonna come polish and go up on that stage and do our joint or do our 2 verses on that stage. And it's just like I wish I could go back like and just observe it again, like soak it in more. Even though a lot of those memories still feel super fresh to me, it's like you don't know what's.
Yeah, you could never go back to that moment, and you could never have that feeling like, back again.
Just
you know what I mean?
that feeling, that
feeling is you'll never. It's you can't. You know, you fucking. It's like a drug. You'll spend fucking the rest of your life trying to chase that feeling again. You know, it's just new feelings to be had. You know.
Yeah. But it does sound like,
but the
honestly,
fact that you got to be there for those.
Because like you went through like
is
like all of it though, right? Like you went through this whole wave of it. Plus you're coming up with all these people who then go on to do such crazy successful things. Plus at the same time you're like amongst them, you got dog tags, as I understand.
Yeah, these are your peers.
Not everybody got dog tags, is what Danny said.
I think that it's like we all grew together at the same time as well. Yeah. We all grew together. So as far as not only just the stuff we're putting in our verses, how we're performing it, the kind of beats that we're doing, the kind of events we want to go to and pull up at, you know, then after that, you know, shit really starts speeding up, and EOW starts hosting Rocksteady Reunion, and like then shit really, we start doing shows in Philly.
And EOW ends up on MTV. Shit like that.
Exactly. So yeah, so that was another thing. When Zoo was on that show for a couple weeks in a row, and then he got taken out by the person who invited him on that MTV show, which was Breeze. it was like we was always running into each other. We was always like, yo, we was always like in that world with the same kind of level. And it's like, oh, that's gonna inspire us more. It's like, oh shit, you saw that? You saw Breeze take out Zoo. You know, Zoo's like, damn, like he wanna like bring it up. Then we're like, yo, shit, we wasn't even part of that, but we see both of these dudes on the regular rocking, like we gotta bring it up. And then, you know, eventually we all start doing joints. So the first CD was called Special Forces, and it's somewhere in storage. I can't really pull it out, but the first CD was called Special Forces, and basically everybody had pretty much their own pre-EOW material. So I had the song Capitalism on it. Third Eye Navigators had a song on it. You know, every Eye to Eye had songs on it. Solid Ground. Scram Jones had a song called Jackson Jacker. Yo, damn, son. He basically jacks Smooth Criminal. No, is it Smooth Criminal? Yeah, I think he jacks Smooth Criminal, samples it, and just like his fucking flow on it is just mad, like witty, clever, punchliney shit. And it's like, I'm a jack, son, I'm a jack. Yo, dogs, it's one of the illest fucking like you're just like, wow, like it's just like that was like a compilation. Everybody had shit on it, but nobody was like doing it together. It was like the work that you had that you was most proud of. Then the second one was hold on, I could pull that up. The second one was no, I think there was like a mixtape or a live tape, and then the second one was called fuck. It's like a silhouette. I can see it right now. Hold on.
Definition. Danny said.
Definition. Yes, definition. So that was
that's
like
our producer.
already like that's when we were already like, okay, I think that's around the time when the dojo popped up as well. So it's like, okay, we have a little more progress where it's like, okay, we can control when and where and how we record. So songs become easier, not easier because we're still trying to push the envelope, but we're also like
well, like logistically easier.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if we have an idea and we want to make it a reality, then it could get done. You know what I'm saying? We can make plans, be like, all right, bet this and this day, boom, let's go knock it out. And again, even back then, the idea was to make records and sell them to the people that come to the show, you know, and that was a model that went as far as it could go, but we still didn't know that it was going to be this international movement. Like, we still didn't even know none of that shit. I mean, obviously the internet wasn't even something that came into play for this kind of cultural thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, sure, the internet existed, but when we was in the pyramid, fuck an internet. Who need that? You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, it was still like that.
Yeah, no, I think that was where like there might have been a disconnect and like an error in the play. Like there should have been internet presence at the dub, because like there was so much fucking history being
made. I agree.
And it wasn't being documented, and that's so unfortunate. That it's just like, fuck, man. Only the people that were in the room can ever attest to it, you know, and speak to it and speak about it. And so like everybody else is just like, word, I guess I believe you. You just tell me a story. Nowadays, like people have the internet, they got YouTube and Google for reference for all these things. You know what I mean? So it's like when you don't have, like, you know, on the internet, a very common phrase is Pixar didn't happen. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just like, you know, that's where it should have. That's where there could have been an improvement.
But that's the thing. That's the thing. We didn't have.
When you're in the middle of shit, of like doing great shit, you can't think of all the. You know what I'm saying? Like all the things. And there were people documenting. There were like to the credit of everybody that was showing up and showing love. Like everybody was contributing, and there were different people that. There is a lot of videos. Danny is saying. And that's true. Like that's for fact, for sure. They wouldn't been able to stitch together a whole documentary that was how many hours long? 2 hours? 3 hours? Somewhere in between there. 3 hours, right? 3 hours long if they didn't have more than enough footage. But like, I think it would have been, you know, like concise, like a one page, you know what I mean? Good titling of all the videos. Like, that was the beginning of the era of like grind time and like good documentation on like one channel. You know what I mean? On YouTube and like people.
Yo, all right. So really quick, I gotta interject. Because I've been, first of all, shameless plug. You know, I got mad love for the brothers in Four City Brewery, but I gotta show love to this other brewery right here. It's Hackensack Brewery. Some other good folks out there as well. They have some hip hop shit. I was actually chilling with Zoo there last weekend. Anyways, but you know what they say about beer. You don't buy it, you rent it. So I gotta take an intermission, but in the meantime, I'm gonna put a link in the chat so y'all could play the video of the song that I put out in, what was it, 2020, 2021.
We've never tried that.
In the middle, in the medium, in intermission, and then we'll come back and pick this up. But you know, I don't want to just be like, I have y'all just staring at my my closet door. So y'all get that link? Can y'all make that happen?
Do you have it? I don't know who can share.
Danny's giving it a shot.
Awesome.
Danny's giving it a shot.
All right.
She told us to hold on just 1 second. She's gonna give this a shot. This is the first time. We've never actually done that before. We've actually never taken
territory.
A bathroom break before. Like
my bad.
Usually we just hold it and suffer.
Yeah, word, facts. We just suffer in silence and shit. And then we all like
immediately like are gone, and then my girlfriend will be like,
we were literally talking about this like 2 weeks ago after the show and being like, oh my God, there's nothing like releasing.
I've been holding from about 35 minutes into the show. I've been holding. Yeah, so definitely I had already figured something out, like, okay, I'm gonna just do this, I'm gonna pass that video link. But yeah, I mean, who would have thought that we would end up with this cultural movement? We never thought that. And it's funny because it's like, aside from the hip-hop shit, like we're still like chilling outside of the dub too. I have pictures from birthday parties in like 2003, 2004, Vice and them. I threw the illest house party in Jersey from New Year's 03 going into New Year's 04, where everybody was there. Bong was there, Kendra, Jay, like it was super duper ill. And, you know, it was just like, it had nothing to do with us being rappers and being at the pyramid or doing none of that shit. It was just like, yo, this is fam, like crew love and doing other shit. Like, you know what I mean? And it was like, and there's a lot of other people who are kind of like EO Dub extended fam that don't rap, that were all cool. Like perfect example, Steady Ruckus. You know what I mean? Like, I know Stead been an EO Dub soldier, never touched the stage once. But he's one of the people that I met that I'm super tight with through the dub, because our whole extended families, like somebody would throw a party at XYZ Club, we all mad deep.
Chunk, Extra.
Exactly. Exactly.
Julio, right?
Exactly. And that's
people that we meet.
That's that power of that movement and everything. And it's kind of like we could sense that it was something special, something magical that that we couldn't let it go. We couldn't just slack on it and be like, oh, you know, I couldn't be like, well, listen, I gotta go to work, so I gotta shut down this Sunday night stuff. Like, nah, that shit never entered my mind. And like
just on that note, like that's a pretty big thing for you. Like you deserve your flowers for that mentality, because not everybody has the mentality with that level, the willingness to not sleep, and to like, some people have to, like, you know, move it aside because of work or whatever. And even some people have said that here before, but in your case, it doesn't seem like it just seems the way your character is. It's impossible for you to do anything but dedicate that time to the dub while simultaneously pursuing all endeavors in your life.
Right.
That's like just commendable shit.
Nah, I mean, I think it's just that special. Like, so here's another thing. So I mentioned that when I went to Japan, I went with my best friend. So my best friend, who a lot of the OGs from the dub know, um, his name was Teddy, and he was there at that New Year's party. I think it was 02 going into 03, and he knew he was there at the shows. He was there at the dub. He ended up dying in 03 because he was born with sickle cell. So he was always the dude that was really, oh shit, is that my headphones going? Say something.
I hear you. We hear you.
Yes.
I just heard a little pip-a-doo-doo, so it sounds like it might be going down. So he was one of the main people that was like in my corner, was like basically playing the role of my manager, and everybody from the dub knew him and loved him too. I have pictures with everybody from the dub. So he passed in 03, and it kind of was like he was the one that believed in me the most after the dub, like, or just right in step with the dub. So it's kind of like we all like got tighter, like, you know what I'm saying? At least for me, it's kind of like, all right, I'm gonna like explore more and do more, because my best friend who believed in me and was like, yo, this is the right group for you to click with. We're gonna stay together. We're gonna, keep going. So for that long stretch, like I say, we started going in 2000. It was probably till like 2005 till I missed a week of EO dub, probably. So, that was a long stretch, and it was like, at the same time, we're as a group trying to put things out, me as a soloist trying to do things, and then me and my other group with Authentic Sound Strange, we trying to do things as well. So it was so many different things going on. But in my mind, I'm still thinking hip hop is the way to go. It's going to be my end goal. It's going to be my career. That's what's going to eventually at some point pay the bills for me, and that's a tough thing. That's a very tough thing, because once, it's funny, KRS-One said it once too. It's like, yo, if you want to do hip hop, make sure that's not how you pay your bills. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because that's going to compromise what you're doing with hip hop, because it's a financial thing versus a creative thing. And so that was another strength of EO Dub, is like everybody kind of did something to keep themselves alive, but was alive when they were doing hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
So that's an ill distinction. And then always knowing, once you're with an organization that long, even if I missed for a while, I would come back, get love, and know I'm gonna see some nice dudes. Because I don't think I remember I was there when you first pulled up, Flacko, but I remember when Just James started pulling up. And I remember because at first he didn't produce. I remember when it was announced on stage that he started producing.
Gradually.
So that's just ill in and of itself. And there's plenty of other people like
that grew under the umbrella.
Right.
Absolutely.
And just even there's still people that like I remember flows, and I don't see them as well, but there's certain people that like I'm already going on, like obviously with Zoo and Pro and Vice, it's like I'm going on knowing them 22 years now. You know what I'm saying? But then there's people that came like in the subsequent years, Big Ox, there's people that are still like, I know that their influence and they're connected to the movement just as much as me. And they've also honed their skills on the way up just as much as I do. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it's kind of like, so this is one thing, and I'm going to say it right now on the air, anybody's watching it, and you too, is like, I'm trying to do as much collaboration with everybody as possible, because it's cool to say that I'm cool with so-and-so and this and all y'all, but it's better to say, if this person's an artist and I'm an artist, we have work together as well. You know what I'm saying? So when this is over, we'll connect, we'll swap like contact and shit, and then just start sending shit to each other to see whatever could work that we could like do together. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because like I said, like it's good to have fond memories, but it's better to have fond memories and records. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, so Danny's feeling that. I don't know. That's all her feeling.
Yeah, she said fam gang gang.
Yeah, it's true. Oh, see, I don't have the chat up. Any word on that video yet? Because
Yeah, I was waiting to see what
She
was
gave a
happening with
thumbs
that,
up.
but you just kind of like were just giving it was amazing.
why my sound
Yeah, that also felt like the show ender.
So
like,
yeah, man, I think the evolution of the dub has been just a great thing for my life and for mad people. Like, there's just the cultural impact of the dub.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so where are we going from here? I guess you guys can come up with a question. Or are we gonna go to the video?
Well, you know what? We're gonna go to the video.
No wonder I don't hear ya.
Oh, okay. Can you hear us now? Checking 1, 2, 3.
All right, the
no
video's
worries.
going.
The video's coming up.
So let's
bathroom break.
Bathroom break.
All right, now I hear you guys. So go back.
Now we're about to play a video. You're about to go use your bathroom break.
All right, bet.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm doing the same. Wait, no
yeah,
video?
no, I'm gonna go ahead and take a bathroom break as well.
The video disappeared. All right, awesome. Woo.
So yeah, just to intro the song, it's Afro Latino. Hello.
Boom.
We'll just get into it. We'll talk a little bit more later. Again, my name is Verbs. I'm a student at GS. Yeah, we in the building. I got one song for you guys. It's called Afro Latino.
See, I'm Dominican, but recognize the blackness within my skin. It goes back to African, shipped to the Caribbean. To a land Columbus didn't discover. A mix of Spanish, black, and Indian gave me this color. Thanks to my pops and my mother for never having any hate in them. But even growing up in New York, I felt racism. I seen the same systems had to do the knowledge. Going up and watch Heist, the finest drug dealer college. And in the melting pot, I learned a lot. And so much of my education I got through hip hop. And felt the ill connection as I quickly discovered that blacks and Latinos in this country are sisters and brothers. So it was no wonder when I started to see clear, yo, that Malcolm X and Martin were also my heroes. Thinking to myself, how did he overcome it? When I read the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, it had me bugging and made me realize how hard they try to shackle truly free black minds. So I gotta pack mine and then my people keep my faith strong and keep fighting in the name of those like Trayvon, Tamir Wright, Sandra Bland, and Philando, Michael Brown, Walter Scott, Eric Garner, damn, so many to name. When will it ever cease? That's why I stand with Colin Kaepernick when he takes a knee. Yo, I'm proud to be Dominican, but I recognize the fact that being Afro-Caribbean also means that I'm black. So I stand with Cap and look up to Ali and hold my fist up like John Carlos and Tommy. I don't only use February to honor and praise. Should be our month all year. A country built by slaves. I keep it real each day, trying to survive them daggers. Shouldn't have to remind America that black lives matter. Don't even try to argue with me, save your lungs. Just listen to Latin music, hear the rhythm and the drums. That comes from the land called Africa. Fascism is so whack, I won't have it, nah. This is a call to action, y'all, it's time to unify. The power of the people is what we gotta utilize. And if the two combine, we balance out the majority.
What happened?
I don't know what happened. It looks like it's lagging.
Damn, I fucked up. The second I touched something, it just did that.
I don't think that was you though.
So weird.
But it's okay. We were back for it, so it's not like dead air or nothing.
Okay.
It was just like, the perfect timing of that.
People can go to YouTube and find it.
Yeah.
We back.
You know what though is it's good because I actually before the show we always do a pre-show on Holdern's Twitch channel and we play the music of the artist. If it's an artist, if it's a battler, we watch their battles. With Jay Smooth, we watch some interviews that he did. Like TED Talks, shit like that, you know? So we actually had played that video before you came on the show, okay. Pre-show. And ironically, we were talking about the song, and we both were talking about how much we liked it, right? And I said to Holden, in particularly, that I wanted to talk to you about the subject in the song, right?
Okay.
That's facts.
Because like I think that it's one of those things that like it's super not discussed much, right? And I think that there's just a whole gray area that exists that is not. I was literally talking about this. I was having a back and forth. I don't want to call it an argument with somebody on Facebook earlier today. A Puerto Rican gentleman from New York that lives in LA now. And like we were having a back and forth, and he was standing against he was standing with a stance of like oh man, he shared a status of a black man who had said something along the lines of black men are not loved if we don't have like money. And he was upset that he was like making it specific to black men, and he was like saying that that's wild segregationist and racist. And I was just like, whoa, like you gotta relax. Like, why are you feeling so much animosity towards dude just for speaking up on behalf of black people? And him and me started having a back and forth, and he was asking me what I consider myself. And I'm like, well, racially, I consider myself black because Latino is not a race.
Mm-hmm.
Puerto Rican is not a race.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you know, but he's also a Puerto Rican, right? Who super did not like, he, like many Puerto Ricans, like question the validity of my, like,
right.
my truth, which is like, I consider myself black first.
Right.
Well, I don't even, like, in recent times, I've even questioned terms like Afro-Latino because I feel like it serves to segregate us. This is where, like, there's like a divide with black people amongst Latinos where it's like, yo, you don't want to be down, bro. Like, you consider yourself something that is not us when you know that part of you is us.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have a race because Latinos aren't a race, right? Like, Latinos are an ethnic group. And
right.
even then, it's there's so much division nationally.
And not only that, but there's so much diversity.
Nationality more than they pledge. Like, Latinos don't pledge allegiance to Latino flag. Colombians pledge allegiance to Colombia. Exactly. And Puerto Ricans pledge allegiance to being Boricuas. And yes. Dominicans pledge allegiance to Dominican, which is not even a whole island, right? Like, mm-hmm. You're sharing an island with another nationality. And there's just all this divide that it just, I feel like it serves like, and then again, right? Like, we're speaking about nationality and ethnicity. And nowhere in this is the topic of race being brought
mm-hmm.
up, right? Because again, Latinos aren't a race. Hispanics are not a race.
Right.
So like, it's one of those things where like, throughout the years, those of us who are in the know, right, amongst in that community have used the term Afro-Latino because that's how we showed identification of like, I'm aware of my background and I know where I come from right. and where my roots lie. And I am a part of the African diaspora. But I also feel like that term, like it does serve more to divide, right? Where like racially, that's still not a race, right? Like, there's no, like, if you fill out the census, there's no Afro-Latino checkbox. You know what I mean? Like, there's no when you're filling out for a job, there's no like, yo, Afro-Latino box to check. You know what I'm saying?
So it's
like,
funny.
Racially, work. Go ahead, take it away.
You mentioned that because it's like, that shit pissed me off about the census. It's like they're asking for ethnicity and race. It's yes. like, if you have one, you shouldn't need to ask about the other. And I'm meaning, if you have ethnicity, why does my race matter? You know, what? Like, you're getting more specific than race by going right. into ethnicity, because then, or even nationality goes even more specific than ethnicity. But you know, I can see if it was nationality and ethnicity, but ethnicity and race is kind of like, so you you consider yourself ethnically Puerto Rican, but are you a white Puerto Rican or a black Puerto Rican or a brown? Like, that's what you're asking, and that's the dumbest thing to ask, period. If you know somebody's identifying as Puerto Rican, that's all you need to know. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I think this country gets gives hyper focus and undue hyper focus among minorities to this little kind of, and it's partially probably because of divide and conquer tactics. Like racism ain't an invention of brown folks. Racism is an invention of dominant cultures. You know what I'm saying?
I recently also had that discussion as well with someone, because there was a gentleman on Facebook, once again, of the whiter persuasion this time, and he was claiming that like racism started in America. I forgot at what point and what year, and I was just like, no, like race was not constructed in what you know as the United States of America. Race got like I've listened to a podcast where they delved into this specific topic, and like the king in, I forgot what country in Europe, that developed this idea of race, and developing this idea of the white race, right? And like and that's where you then start getting racism, because when you're starting to like section off people into groups of a race, and you're mentioning people of another race with a particular inflection in your tone, that's the birth of racism there.
So
and
that's the whole
also
thing. It's like
objectifying those people and persecuting those people as well, because that was also happening back then with that particular king. I forgot in what country, because I don't think that it was England. I think that it was like a king in like fucking Castlevania or some shit, right? Okay. Like Turkey,
Eastern Europe.
Eastern European country or some shit like that. And he was the one that like got, it might have been a French king, I don't know, I forget, or a Spaniard. Actually, I think it was a Spaniard king. It was a Spaniard king back then, and he was the one that was like real keen on like developing races, and like it was particularly to subject Africans to like racism. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
and to create like a dominance amongst white men and shit, or what they were trying to define as white men.
Right. It sounds like you're kind of alluding to. So basically, when the Spaniards discovered the New World, supposedly discovered, they decided that there's this dude named Bartolomé de las Casas who came over with Columbus, and he supposedly is arguing. They're arguing over why they can't enslave the Indians because they have a soul, but the Africans don't have souls. You know what I'm saying? And that's why they can be enslaved. So race is a social construct, and it basically came into heavy practice because of colonialism, because of slavery, because of all of these things, where one group is going to claim superiority over another group based only on race. And that's pretty much the definition, or one definition of racism, is claiming superiority over another group based only on race. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So Afro Latino came about.
Circle the block, right? To Afro Latino and to what we were.
So Afro Latino came about. It was a song that I was already like kind of working on. So all right, I have to dip back into my story. So throughout most of the 2000s, I worked in healthcare for a really big company. And then in 2015, they pretty much.
Did we lose you?
Okay, no, we lost the audio.
I lost audio. Did you also?
I lost audio too. Do you hear me?
I hear you now. Yep. Bet. We're good to go again. It was a glitch in the matrix. All good. It
was a little glitch in the matrix.
All right. So, but anyways, after my main
trying to shut you down.
After my main 9 to 5 got deaded, I ended up going back to school, and I went right back to the same college in Jersey that I met my group, And then from there, I went to Columbia University to like finish. I got my associates, and then I went to Columbia University. So when I was in Columbia University, I'm still working on music the whole time. And I got invited to perform for Black History Month. And that's where that show footage is from that video. And so my goal was to have that song released that same day of that show, in order to tell people, like, while I'm on stage, yo, it's out for purchase on iTunes right now, this and that, to kind of give it that boost. Unfortunately, the dude that was mixing it for me wasn't able to get it to me at that time. So I ended up just sitting on it and saying, all right, let me just finish the rest of my project and then I'll put it out. So then turn around, and in 2020, right at the height of all of the shit, of all of the, after George Floyd's murder and all of that, that's when I took the video footage of me performing it. And then, so that whole video I did all on my own through iMovie. And so I spliced that video together and then put it out formally in 2020, in that summer of 2020, where I have footage from me performing in Black History Month. And then you saw I have George Floyd and, Philando Castillo, like all of those names that I mentioned, plus more names that I don't mention in the song that also, were killed unjustly by police, or, Trayvon wasn't, but even by police. But one of the main messages in the song is that I'm saying, like, listen, we do have this African ancestry, but also African American and Black heroes in general are also my heroes. That's what I say. Like, thinking to myself, how would he have done it when I read the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass? Like, those type of shit, those type of experiences, aside from obviously growing up in the hood, having my best friend was Black, like all of these other connections, and never being taught as a child that we are superior to anybody else. That's the thing in Latino culture, is probably why you had this whole spat with this Puerto Rican dude, is that there's actually history of more systemic reasons to try to make this distinction. Like the infamous dictator of Dominican Republic, Trujillo, was really hard on that shit and really wanted to kind of make this cultural identity say that, oh no, Dominicans are mainly Indian and Spanish blood and not Black blood, which is straight bullshit. And anybody who knows anything will tell you that it's straight bullshit. So
and that's where we get a lot of like things online of like where like or comedians even that are from the tri-state area poking fun at like Dominicans with like I know Black,
Papi, I know Black,
I know Black, Papi, I know Black. Yes,
yeah.
Nigga, you Black but too.
The thing about it is that person that they're speaking to is of an older generation and most likely an immigrant coming here. Talk to all the first and second generation Dominicans from here. We all know that what's up. We all know, yes, there's African roots in my blood. We all know that. And it's kind of like, for somebody to really carry on this notion of I'm not this or I'm that, is picking up racism from another group that then now applying it to yourself.
The teachings that like and there's a lot of self-hatred that goes on, right? That happens. Cause homie in the post was like, yo, I'm married to a Black woman. I'm like, I mean, that doesn't really like change anything, bro. Like that's like when a white guy is like, oh, my best friend is Black, I can't be racist. Like, no, you can still say some race. You can be Black and say some racist shit towards Black people. You know what I mean? Like,
well, see, that's the thing.
And it's that deep, you can't be racist as a Black person towards your own kind, right? But you could say some shit that you've learned through the indoctrination of America and the system that oppresses us and teaches us to hate ourselves. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
but also the thing is
that shit back at us.
The other thing is that, like, I think like a Black person, a Latino, can be prejudiced based on race, but racism is believing your race to be superior to another race. And that is something that is not as easily found. Like, I can't say that it doesn't happen and there aren't Black people that are just like, we're superior to white people. And I can't say all of that. But if you look at history, it's more likely this group has been really fucked up to my group for a long time. So now prejudice is okay, I'm gonna judge this whole group based on that. But it's
Yeah,
not saying
I look
my
at
group
racism.
is inherently superior to that group. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I look at racism more like the people who have the power to enforce rules and systemic like regulation that is racist and can deter people from succeeding. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the
And
dominant culture.
in that
And
case, there's only one group on earth that's really right capable of like committing racism. Like I can't commit racism on white people because I don't hold like at the end of the day, there's still like a whole system in the world that functions to keep white people afloat. And it's just like, yeah, I could be like, you're not cool in this little section of where I'm from, but the world will empower you to believe that you are the coolest motherfucker on the face of the planet, and that you are in power of
structures. You can't uproot structures that have been in place for centuries. You know what I mean? And then have those structures work for you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man, it's a lot of deep stuff. This is the kind of stuff that I really like try to put into my music. And
yeah, no, like, look,
it's super interesting.
You had made the song, it sparked the debate.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm not gonna really comment on anything on that. What am I gonna say here? But
nah, what? I mean, I think.
But like, really, it's like hearing it all, and like learning about it from all y'all's perspectives is really beneficial because like, you guys are tapping into stuff. Hey, I never would have thought about it. You know, like I would just hear what the media says, and then, but it's more like, so take a term like Afro Latino, right? I'm gonna probably just get some blog article interpretation of maybe I should use the term or not. It's not like super present in my life. Like we're in Montreal, we have our own versions of shit where arguably race isn't the first consideration up here. It's up there, but it's not the first one.
The first consideration is if you speak French or not.
Absolutely, it's wild up here, but it's they just passed some crazy shit. The crazy law got passed. But like at the end of the day, like we don't really see it, and it's a different country and a different system, and understanding the conversation just helps, because otherwise, man, you say some wildly ignorant shit by accident just because, like, yo, you might be like, yo, the politically correct thing to say is Afro-Latino, bro. And is it? I don't know. I never would have thought about any of this shit.
I mean, it's not the wrong phrasing. It's not a wrong phrasing or a bad phrasing at all. Like, if
just
anything,
the idea of it being divisive, you know, like it's so interesting.
Right. And I was just wanting to have the discussion with Verbs because he had the song titled that, and it can spark a discussion to that. And that's like, I could tell from him making the song that he's absolutely open to talking about that. And it is important for us to talk about it. And as what could be considered Afro-Latinos, it's important for us to have these discussions and to have them like out in public for other people, because there is no definitions and there is no lines, and there is, and like it's important for us to like have these discussions because we didn't have that. Clearly we didn't have that growing up, and it's important for us to facilitate that for the next generation. You know, like there is a discussion being had, and we're having it right here on the EOW network on
Perspectives, man. It's
on Perspectives podcast. Feel free to tune into us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time.
Plug that.
But so it's kind of ill. Like my whole journey has kind of taken me into in and out of college and in and out of hip hop, and so now where we get to in a place now, I can make a song from start to finish in my own home, no paying thousands of dollars to studios and all of that. But the market has a taste for a different kind of hip hop, or not even has a taste. The dominant taste of the market is a different kind of hip hop. And even in the 90s when we started, you know, when Diddy and them were doing their thing, that wasn't the brand of hip hop we were making then. But the means have come into our hands a lot like there's a lot more access to put out music, and there's a lot more people putting out music, and there's a lot more mediums to put out music in. So I say that to say, like, EOW has helped me get those 10,000 hours in, just as far as my craft, obviously my performance, but my content, my energy, my direction, what I want to do with it as an end goal. And I've already put away this idea that I'm going to make it rich off of rap. But remember before when you would come out as an artist, one of the main things that you was worried about was that distribution deal. How many stores can you get your product in? Now the internet is the ultimate distributor of everything. So now everybody has products all over the world because all they need is the internet. But there's millions of rappers now. There's literally millions of rappers. And I'm taking that because Ghost mentions that on his Lost Tapes album. But there's literally millions of rappers. So the field now is more crowded, but the content that I'm putting out is still kind of in line with my trajectory, with my art, with my growth as an artist. And it's all in my hands. So it's kind of like with channels like this, with like Prspctvs, there's so many ways that I could spread my music, and I'm not going to ever sell millions. Sales isn't even a thing anymore like that, which is crazy to think about, because the whole first 10, 15 years of my journey was focused on how to figure out how to sell this product. And the definition of sales is completely metamorphosized. But I think that, for one, things that I've learned through the dub is that strength of purpose of why I'm doing it and what I'm saying with it, and letting me shine through. You know what I'm saying? So like for me, it's funny because I'm working on another project now, and I'm writing down like things about what I want to do. So I write down like 8 or 9 songs that I want to put in. And then next to it, I write what the song is doing or saying. So one song is what I write life bars, kind of basically like, you know, wisdom from an MC. Then another song is from verbs to the music industry. So it's a song talking to the music industry. Then another song is from verbs to the audience. Then there'll be another song that's like about Omar Rivera's life. Then there'll be another song that's like a concept song where I'm telling an abstract story or making you think of an abstract thought. So it's different kind of perspectives that the songs are kind of coming from, you know. Then there's a political song. Then there's just kind of like a boom bap homage song. And then it's funny because somewhere in the album, I want to say like a disclaimer, like no anonymous nobodies or fictional enemies were murdered or killed in the act of making this album. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, hip hop is full of hyperbole and everybody's the baddest and I'll fucking son you and da-da-da-da, this and that.
Shit. Nowadays the young cats there's no more hyperbole. There's no more like they're killing motherfuckers and rapping about like the motherfucker that they actually killed and shit. It's different with this generation. So,
right.
But that definitely was a prevalent thing. It's crazy to think about too, though, because like I tell people all the time, like that really started with our generation. Like the guys that we think are the greatest started the studio gangster shit, right? Like the Mobb Deeps and the Onyxes are like literally the forefathers and the godfathers of like studio gangster shit. They weren't catching bodies.
You know what's wild?
Well, here's the thing: older cats will remember different gangsters, but there's lines a little blurry. Like Kool G Rap was literally on the run for a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And one of his projects is On the Run. You know what I'm saying? So, but it wasn't as graphic. Like it wasn't exactly what was coming out on the records, but it was highly influenced with parts of reality. So now it's kind of almost completely divorced from it. Even Mobb Deep, they have some real shit. Like, yo, I'm a huge hip hop book reader and I've read like 8 or 9 of different rappers' books. I'm currently reading the Rakim book, but Prodigy's book is one of my favorites. And he talks about a lot of the real shit that happened for them in Queensbridge back in the days and all of this shit. And you're right, though, because Prodigy actually comes from money. Like Prodigy's like
Yeah, no,
grandfather,
they were not. They were not.
his
Like they
grandfather's
were
in the
not.
Big Band Hall of Fame. His mom's is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Like, and similar to Nas, you know, Nas's dad was a big jazz musician.
Yeah.
So there's a blend of social mirror shit where it's like, I'm not the biggest thug, but I know all these big thugs out here. I see it on the street. I see people get shot and all of this. So you're doing the social mirror thing, and then eventually it morphed into that's me. I'm that killer.
You know, it's
You know what I'm
wild though,
saying?
like, cause like, yo, most of the people I know that like maybe rap really just view it as like they're spitting the most authentic experiences ever, as in their like lived experiences. And I guess a lot of people don't read it all and don't know all the history, so they just kind of hear the music and glorify it in this like nostalgic lens of that's the realest shit ever, because that's what everybody was doing.
Yeah, but then there's also this kind of frat boy rap element too, which has actually become prevalent in certain artists. There were certain artists from the underground and there's certain white artists, but there's this certain like, I'm just saying crazy shit because I don't give a fuck, and it's clever as hell.
Shock rappers.
Yeah, so there's that
Eminem. Shit, Biggie was a shock rapper.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. So there's also this
RZA,
element
when he did Grave Diggers, they were shock rappers. The hardcore shit was definitely like a huge element of that. And I mean, it's not. I'm not saying any of that like in a criticism of it, right? It's just like it is what it is, right? Like it really, like it's crazy because that's the era that really became a thing. It's just that the people we respect the most weren't looked at like as though they were the main conspirators of it, because there were so many examples that we all had of like your everyday guy in the street being faking the funk. But like really that did come from like that generation of rappers that they were getting on and they were rapping about things that they weren't necessarily themselves doing. It was kind of like a reporting on my neighborhood and the goings on of where I'm from type of thing. And
but then here's
more,
the thing.
it's morphed into this like this reality rap of like, nah, I like this generation of like, nah, I'm not a rapper, because it's like this connotation of like rappers don't be about it and rappers aren't about that life. And they're like, nah, I'm really about this action. Like I'm really in these streets. I'm really outside. And in that you end up getting, you know, what you have now with the music, where it's like hyper reality driven of like, yo, you go hunt down your enemy and then you fucking make a song about it. You know what I mean? And then you like laugh and kiki ha ha about the dude that you just killed and shit. Like because crazy.
There was a point when once the studio gangster shit kind of almost got out of hand, then the street dudes are like, oh, word, you talking all this shit? So now we got to test you and see if you really about that. Then it became, oh, all right, so I'm going to be the studio gangster, but I'm going to surround myself with gangsters, and then we all just going to move in that way. And then it got to a point where it's like, okay, now it's going to be like, I'm a studio gangster, but I'm also like a pimp, and I'm also like super rich. And then, so now it's changing into a whole bunch of things. And then it circles back around where you get to that drill point where we're at now with the drill music, where it's literally people making songs versus rival crews. And they really making it with the intent of like, look, it could go down, and I might actually be planning to make this go down, where it's like, all right, crews are beefing, but not in the way where rap battles used to be, where it's like, okay, we're going to battle on the record, so we don't have to battle on the street.
Yeah, no, this isn't like this record.
So
this
now
is
it's like these drill records are like, this is records. Yeah, so it's crazy how it keeps going in different ways, but ultimately a lot of people who are trying to quote unquote make it are looking for economic advancement through it, regardless of if their subject matter is, you know, I'm the meanest killer of the whole world, or if their subject matter is I'm already rich. It's like, okay, all of these people who claim to be rich on their records, they're selling records to make more money then, right? So really, being as rich as you portray yourself on the record ain't enough, right? Like what is the impetus for you to, if you was really super paid like that, you can say whatever the fuck you want and not really care what it sells. Cause you already not super paid, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so authenticity is a huge thing. I forget which one of you hit on it, but authenticity is a huge thing, and that's really what resonates with us. That's really what's like, okay, that's what I fuck with. Like, you know, but don't get it twisted.
On a side note, I've recently been like thinking about like the fact that I'm like, yo, there's never really been like a street white rapper that like got on and was like on some DMX shit, and like we accepted that, because there just never really has been that. Like the authenticity doesn't, like when it happens on an underground level, but like it never busts into the mainstream, right? And like in the mainstream, like the ones that you do get, it's just, it doesn't, Stitches,
Well,
you know,
then
I put this brick in your face. It just, I don't know. I don't.
Well,
I
the
can't
problem is, I
recall
think
ever
I
there
think the
being
problem is
that.
that there's always another gateway where. So I watch a lot of these analyses breakdown videos on YouTube, and somebody was talking about how, like, actually Eminem has mentioned it on records, but they have a clip of a Mac Miller video where he's saying, like, just because I was a white rapper, I was getting way more support than a lot of people that I fuck with and that I respect.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying, like, I put my first mixtape on iTunes and it's got 10,000 downloads, and I'm like, I'm bumping some other shit that ain't even doing that well. And so he starts to realize it. Look, Eminem says it on like his second or third album. What if I was white? What if I was black? I would have so half. I didn't have to graduate from Lincoln High School to know that, but I can rap. So fuck school. That's too cool to go back. So there's a certain impetus to like, all right, I'm gonna put out some shit, and no matter what, it's kind of gonna like, it's gonna have an advantage. And then you have other rappers who start off as rappers and now put out other shit, change, like MGK. He put out 2 punk rock albums, which are pretty decent as far as punk rock, but you or me don't have the luxury of coming out, putting out some rap albums and saying, you know what,
Being like,
I'm gonna go over here and do this thing.
This shit.
We don't have that luxury. And now, mind
it's
you,
a costume that they could put on and take off.
Right. Mind you, the MGK albums are produced by, what's this dude's name? Travis Barker, I think.
Yeah. Travis Barker have his hand heavy in hip hop.
Right. So there, you know, for me, I'm not the biggest like punk fan, but I for me that's good. But if you look at that punk world, they look at it like this is shit.
Yeah, I've been seeing.
No, they really do not like him.
People have given MGK credit though for the music that he put out these last couple, doing that switch up, and I see him getting props for it online.
But then he goes to the festivals. And at the festivals, they do shit like throw bottles at him, and he kind of gets rejected because, like, so it's people like me that like aren't like real punk fans that like grew up on Blink-182 and shit that are like, yeah, MGK reminds me of that era, and like, yo, Travis Barker, honestly, he's one of my favorite sounds because I'm from that nu metal era, and like, yo, Travis Barker's the reason nu metal's back on all those little rap guys doing new. He's heavily been pushing that for years, so MGK is just like a test subject in this bigger experiment of fusing.
So the purists in that world are totally gonna reject it. But
they did.
If MGK can get like, I started off with hip hop, but now I love all kinds of music. But I'm not a purist by any stretch of the mind on the punk rock or on the metal end of the spectrum. But I can say, yo, this MGK, the last MGK albums, I can listen to it when I'm in the mood for that. I'm not going to look at him as a rapper. And probably even when he was doing rap, I wasn't like, oh, MGK is really spitting that real shit. You know what I'm saying? But I knew he was in the space. And if anything, he brought me more over to be able to entertain that kind of punk shit. But, you know, it's like, okay, I'll still fuck with a Green Day album or some other. I don't even know if they have punk albums, but I don't know if they identify as punk. But what I'm saying is, it's kind of like, yeah, let me not play myself like I know this world to that level, but I know what I like enough. And if MGK had never put out rap shit, I might have never discovered his. If he skipped all of his previous rap shit and only dropped these 2 punk albums, would I have gotten around to him? Maybe not. You know what I'm saying? So for a non-purist, he might be close enough to what he's shooting for. You see what I'm saying? But he
I
has
feel
that
like
luxury.
he's like
He
he
has
just I
that
don't know.
luxury. Like for me, I guess the equivalent would be, so for me, I do hip hop, and I actually do hip hop in English and in Spanish. So I'm really working on 2 projects. I'm working on like a 9-song English rap album and then like a 5 or 6-song Spanish album. The Spanish album is boom bap hip hop just with Spanish lyrics. Now, for me to say, now I'm going to cross over and do some reggaeton shit where I'm sing rapping, that's kind of the equivalent jump. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm changing from this world to that other world, and I'm not going to be the best. I'm not going to be fucking with Bad Bunny on some making reggaeton records, because right now he's standing at the top of the game, but also because that's not the world that I kind of like, that I have a drive for. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I can appreciate it as a fan, but I don't have the drive to be that world. You know what I'm saying? Even the Spanish records that I make is some hip hop, like hip hop. You know what I mean? Like my English shit. So yeah, man. I don't know how we spun out all the way out here, but it was a great discussion, and I don't know.
Nah, yo,
Back up to you guys.
this was a.
This is what
I
it
think
does.
This was, yeah, no, I think this is the show. You know what I mean? Like this is the
Facts.
point of the conversation. Like it we start at the beginning, but then it ends up everywhere, every which where place.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? And it leaves it open always for like another discussion and another.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's meant to be a conversation, and a conversation is free flowing, and it goes many places.
And it's like at the end of the day, if it's interesting, it's cool.
Facts.
Right? Like, and yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's definitely the same. It's like 10 o'clock. It's one of the longer episodes of Perspectives that we've done in a while, because your energy is at a level of super energy where you were describing earlier the excited nature that you have.
Exciting.
I definitely believe you have displayed the excitement in full force.
I think the through line has just been kind of like the movement that, you know, the seeing it from infancy to seeing the worldwide international movement that it is today, to seeing it survive the pandemic and go fully virtual. I know we have the live show is coming up in June, right? At Knitting Factory in Brooklyn, right?
Yep.
So I'm super excited for that, you know, and even the other live shows that have been going on. I know our brother Prolific One has been doing this stuff at Sour Mouse, which has been dope. I know Nunzio performed at the last one. So it's kind of like, it's just like, it can't be contained by one container anymore. It's like a gas now, where it's like spreading out into different containers, different mediums. And I'm just glad to have been a part of it from way back. And like I said, in 2000, 2001, we had no idea it was going to end up to be this. And you know, I'm just glad, like
it's
even
pretty far spreading, man. Like it's like on tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to this thing where End of the Week Quebec is working with high school kids to put on like an actual End of the Week challenge thing, like the whole thing, all the rounds, and they're teenagers and shit. So I went to one like last week, and you just gotta think, this is End of the Week all the way up in Montreal. And because they got on TV, they got government money. Now they're in the schools. So literally End of the Week is in Quebec schools right now, teaching young kids about hip hop.
Planting the seed, man. That's a beautiful thing, yo, for sure.
And I just want to say, like, yo, thank you, right? Like, yo, without you guys that first season doing all that building, right? Like the rest of us wouldn't have this foundation to be able to walk into. You know what I mean? Like right
Facts.
now, Holden and me, like regardless of whether or not we would have met, right? We wouldn't be on this channel. We wouldn't be doing what we're doing here if it wasn't for the groundwork that you guys all put in at the Dub on the ground level that first season, them first few seasons, you know what I mean? And took the time to like build up the brotherhood. And then that's what makes it easier for other people to walk into the brotherhood and get accepted into the fold and into the family. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
man.
here we are. You know what I mean?
I
Here we
find
are
that
with this show.
that's the one similar thing. It's like everything that I put in, I got out as well. So like, especially like, you know, lessons that I learned and experiences,
but
times
to,
where I was chilling and, you know, like,
but I'm thanking you, right, for the work you
you're
put
being
in.
thanked.
I
Don't
appreciate
take
This is
that
your
away.
flowers.
Don't take away from
It's
it,
your
right?
flowers.
yes, I appreciate
these
it.
goddamn flowers. You know what I
I'm
mean?
glad.
Because
Thank you, and I'm glad.
without that work, like, look, the things that you're talking about, like, look, you were there on the 9/11 show, right? Like,
Facts.
shit like that is what that's the fucking glue that
Legend.
holds that cement together. That's the cement that's holding the building together. That's that shit right there. Like, without that, there's no sound structure. This show doesn't go a year. You know what I mean? There isn't this familial bond. Danny
This whole
isn't here
movement.
giving a fuck. You know what I mean? Like, it without these things, without like Vice and you and
Vice,
Pro and like all these people like that we've documented, thanks to all of you, you know what I mean? Here we are. And here we get to now tell the story, like allow people to come here and tell a story that we all want to hear, that I don't think that we all realized that people wanted to hear, you know?
Yeah.
And I think
had
that
no idea how deep it goes.
It'll keep on going. I think, you know, it's a slow burner. You know what I mean?
Nice.
A few years from now, we're gonna be surprised that like how many views all these interviews get. You know what I mean? Because
Facts.
people are gonna be very interested in like, oh shit, there's a whole
man.
fucking. We could dive into seasons of worth of like content of like these interesting people that help build the foundation of the indie hip hop scene in New York City and LA and Montreal and all these other places that we've talked to people that they're from. You know what I mean? Like, we've all helped build these scenes where we're from, you know? And that's like important. And ain't no Wikipedia for that shit. It's just
there is not. It is so hard to research people. It is. That's why the episode 1 is this.
Hold on,
that's why it's
sorry.
this.
Hold on. It's just us every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern.
Facts.
Tune in.
Let me ask you a quick question from the audience, real quick. Who would you like to work with as a dream hip hop collab?
Who would I want to work with as a dream hip hop collab? I don't know. Right now, like for me, I think the greatest rapper of all time is Nas. And I really liked his last 3 projects, to be honest, but the last 2 in particular, King's Disease 2 and Magic, are both phenomenal. Yeah, that's like wildest dream type shit.
Wildest dream. That's what he asked you. He asked you what the
but it would be like it would be on some on some real like working with them, not on some like
it's the dream, man. It's like real collab. This isn't some you're in the lab with him. You guys are writing together.
Yeah, facts.
That would be that shit. But it's funny, like there's other shit that I haven't touched upon either. But
we're gonna go on. Sorry.
Nah. But there's been other experiences that like I touched upon Electric Lady lightly, but I didn't really like talk about it. But there's certain shit that you don't know until you know. Like, like that one of those times, real quick story. One of those times when we were in Electric Lady. So first of all, lateness. We would have gotten there on time. We would have seen Erykah Badu finishing her session. We would have met her and chilled with her or whatever. Also, next door to us was Ludacris and not Ludacris, Nelly and the Saint Lunatics. They were all there next. And we kept bumping into them. And we never thought like, yo, you know, we just some underground heads. Because that wasn't our wave. But we wasn't thinking like, you know, build relationships, build those bridges. One time we was in Electric Lady. I think maybe that same time we go across the street to Fat Beach. Who walks in there but DJ Premier? And DJ Premier, we just like starstruck. And he's there and like they have a project out. There's a whole bunch of CDs there. He's like, yo, let me buy that whole row. So he's just showing love. He bought like the Nori album that was out, a bunch of different hip hop projects. And it's like for us, we could have just thought like, yo, we recording across the street at Electric Lady. Can you just do a drop for us? Like just come in, just bless the microphone and be like, yo, whatever this DJ. You know what I mean? Some shit like that where it's like, listen, we're super inspired by you. We're nowhere. We're not signed. We're on nobody's radar. We're spending thousands of dollars out of our own pocket to do some shit. We're a MC and a producer, DJ producer group. You know, like things like that, little opportunities that you don't know. Like, had we built that bridge a little bit stronger or at least made an attempt, shit, we could have had DJ Premier at the Dub. Like, who knows? You don't know what you don't know at that moment.
Yeah.
And there was some pivotal times where we're like really in close proximity to like people that were on. Like, yo, we would run into Black Thought and the Roots a bunch of times. I have a fucking drumstick from Questlove right there that was like he threw out at the end of the live show. There's some shit that I say from the crowd at the live show that ended up on the Roots live CD. That you hear my voice clear as day. You know what I mean? So there's so many little things like that that you don't know what you don't know at that moment. You just young and just in the moment. So that's the one thing that like I'm glad, if anything, the connection with the Dub was too permanent. Was never gonna be some fleeting shit. You know what I'm saying? It was never gonna be some fleeting shit. And you know, got a lot of people to thank, but it's like we're a village, we're a movement, you know what I mean? And just glad to continue it on.
And I appreciate you coming through and sharing all that, man. And just ending it with such energy. Still an exciting end.
Word. Bro had another story like Chuck.
He's got another episode's worth of story. Other episode. We basically stopped in like 2006 or something like that, and then it got derailed from there.
Exactly.
Now we skipped around.
You know what I constantly notice is like all the time. Like, look, it's like immediately after the show, it's like more stories come to mind. Always. And you're like, oh my God, you know what I forgot?
The Cherry Tavern shit. This is Cherry Tavern.
Facts, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate all of y'all coming here, also watching it, the people on the various platforms, wherever you're at. Y'all are wonderful with your questions and your comments and everything.
Much love.
And those of you watching it in the future are also amazing. So just make sure that you follow End of the Week, whose platform we are on, and we have talked about a whole bunch. The easiest way I find is eodub.com. Just go to their website. You'll get all the information, plus all the socials, plus et cetera, et cetera. Make sure to follow them, YouTube, Twitch, everywhere. Just make sure to give the love. And then also Verbs, his Instagram is it's Verbs, I think.
Yeah, it's at
Put the links
VERBZ.
in the chat.
No, it's there, but I'm saying it for whoever's listening, you know, but the links are in the chat too. And also the links will be like down below in the future videos and stuff. But yeah, so just make sure to follow Verbs. And
Instagram.com/verbs with a Z at the end.
Facts.
You know what I mean?
And then from there you can get to the verballocitymusicgroup.com, and that will get you to even more stuff. It's just all kinds of fun discovering on the internet. But yeah, thanks to Danny for holding us down. Also,
thank you to our producer Danny. The best. Always.
And yeah, I don't know. Thank you again for coming through, and I don't know what else to say, y'all. So live long and prosper, everybody.
Word. Likewise. All right, my brothers.
All right, man.
All right. Thanks again.
Take care.
We clear.
I'm not clear yet. Oh, I'm almost clear. I was like, I went to go raid a guy.